we go. Chair Green.
Here.
Okay. Kevin Moore.
Here.
Amy Fitzgerald Tripp.
Here.
Howard Woodtush.
Here, Howard.
We have a quorum.
Great, thank you. And then we will,
Howard, would you like the balance to take left and shift to the right?
To be happy. Do you mean with my weight or with
nothing being
I don't
implied
think
about your
or
weight.
just my presence?
Your presence is wanted on the left side of the,
Okay.
Thank you, Jaime.
thank you.
So we'll open public comment. This is a period for anyone who, in the public, who would like to comment on a project not on today's agenda. And we have a special guest today, Ms. Sarah Rubin. If you'd like to come up, Sarah. Sure. Please.
Should I sit here?
Yes, have a seat, and the microphone is on.
Hi, everybody. I'm Sarah Rubin, the Executive Director of the Santa Barbara County Arts Commission. I came to Santa Barbara from Pittsburgh and started in the position about 6 weeks ago. As you know, the Arts Commission works with the City Arts Advisory, as well as the Visual Arts and Public Places Group and events and festivals through the city. Nina Johnson is our liaison to the city, and I'm hopeful that we're able to have a great relationship and that I can learn more about ABR and the neat projects that you're up to, and also just to see, because as I was saying, I strongly believe that architecture is an art form, to see what we can do to be supportive of your efforts.
Great. Well, we appreciate you stopping by, saying hello, and introducing yourself.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. And good luck in your new position.
Thank you. Hopefully you'll see great things.
Yeah. Right.
Too.
Thanks. Okay. So we'll go on to approval of the minutes for the Architectural Board of Review for April 25th. And we'll take comments on those minutes. Does anyone have any comments or revisions to number 1? I do, actually. Under the motion, number 4 should read, provide a dimensioned plan. Any other comments on 1 or 2 or 3? I have a comment on 3 under the motion. Number 4 should read, add a powder room window on the west elevation floor plans. No, that doesn't work. That first,
West elevation.
yeah. Add a powder room window
In the west.
on the west elevation that is shown on the floor plans, and resolve other inconsistencies between floor plan and elevations.
Yeah.
Any other comments on item 4, 5, or 6?
6, I stepped down as well.
That's noted at the end of the action there on the bottom line on page 7. Oh, no, it's not.
No, it's not.
It should read Miller and Moore.
We both stepped down.
Under the comments, number 7, just to clarify that, it should read, elevations should show adjacent buildings of neighboring sites.
And I actually have a question
And,
for,
okay. Oh, and then let me just finish. Number 9 should read, provide an aerial view identifying all 1- and 2-story structures in the neighborhood. So deleting of the adjacent.
Structures. Of the adjacent
Oh,
structure.
yes, yeah, deleting of the adjacent structures. The structures is twice there. Yes,
And I thought that the majority was in favor of the the architectural style.
are we on project 6 now?
Oh, I thought we moved on to 7,
Okay,
sorry.
It says it's appropriate.
It says it's appropriate but then it says some board members found the proposed project too big, which I thought that sort of when we went through the comments at the end, generally we're in favor of the project. Obviously, there need to restudy certain elevations, but that doesn't seem to reflect what we talked about.
yeah, I had a number of questions about this summary as well, and of a different type. And I'm wondering, since this is such an important and large project, if it would be possible for board members to go back and listen to the videotape and make their own notes about what they see as a summary and come back and look at this again next time?
It's a good idea.
Yeah, I think
Because
so.
I feel like there's several inaccuracies here, and I would like to make it really clear what our position was. And there were different positions, there were different viewpoints, and it's not really meant to be a summary of the majority of the board at this point. You notice
Comments,
it's
comments.
just comments.
True.
So there were different opinions expressed, but I'm not sure that it's really even properly reflected here. Because no one, for example, no one said, it had to be, study traditional versus Santa Barbara style.
Yeah,
That's number 8.
exactly.
No one said that.
Right.
In fact, it was just the opposite. So is that
Well,
possible?
No, can I comment about your comment?
Okay.
So the building that the applicants proposed was a contemporary style building.
Mm-hmm.
So we said that in Santa Barbara, we don't want to discourage contemporary style architecture.
Right.
But I recall saying, we'd like to have you study elements of the building, materials, colors, finishes that are more derivative of Santa Barbara.
Right.
I recall making that comment.
Yeah.
So whether that means that the applicant is to study those things and come back, or whether, I think there's 4 and 8 that kind of contradict each other here.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. So
So I agree with your comment to go back and let's listen to the tapes and see what these people really said, meaning
Right.
yourself.
right.
Mr. Chair, I suggest we table the minutes and then have you
Okay.
proceed as you direct.
Great.
Okay? Thanks.
So at the next board meeting, we'll look at them again then. All right. Consent calendar for May 2nd. Please.
Okay. For those of you who don't know, I'm Nicole Hernandez. I'm the urban historian. I'm filling in for Susan today. We're very short-staffed today. So bear with me on reading these consent minutes. But item A, 920, it was reviewed by Howard Whittosh and Courtney Jane Miller. And 920 Summit Road was...
Courtney was not here.
Huh?
This is last week.
This is last week.
Stand corrected.
Yeah. Final approval of review after final with the applicant to study incorporating boulders into the infiltration area. Item B, 22 Gray Avenue was continued 1 week for the applicant to provide more information. Item C, 2912 De La Vina Street was continued indefinitely to the staff hearing officer with support of the requested modification. 824 Vine Street was continued 1 week for the for more information. And item E, 406 East Haley was final approval as submitted.
Before we vote on that, Howard, could you share with the board there's a couple of items here I have a question about. 2912 De La Vina. The last time we had looked at that, they were looking for a modification that pushed that trellis almost right to the setback, or the property line was 10 feet into the setback. We asked them to pull it back. Do you recall how far it got pulled back?
Let me just get dialed in here. Daily grind 2. Oh, yes. Okay. So I don't know the distance, but I know that the trellis was encroaching into the setback that the city Public Works wants for future street widening and whatever the setbacks are from that future situation. And we thought that because this was a trellis, was not enclosing usable space, that it was something that could be easily removed, that we're okay with it being some 4 to 6 feet in that setback.
Okay.
Does that sound familiar? That was my recollection,
Okay.
without seeing.
And then it looks like you did approve the, on 406 East Haley, that venting configuration. You found it acceptable? or-
Yes, what we did is we approved a housing in which it was a simple rectangular form with battered sides to enclose this industrial-looking
Oh,
fitting, and the
oh.
intake air was on the back side, so.
Okay.
And the kiln, or not kiln, but what do you call it, the pizza oven vented directly into the hood through the building.
Mm,
So we got, kind of get rid of a lot of stuff.
Great, great, okay. Thank you. So we need a first and a second to approve the minutes for May 2nd, consent calendar. Courtney? The first, and seconded by Kevin. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Do we have the consent calendar for today?
Yes.
Okay, great.
These were approved today by Howard with touch only. And we have 400 block of North Canada Street was forwarded to the board. And they have an application at the end of today's agenda, so they're just going to come on at the end of today's agenda.
Okay.
So he can do both at one time. Then we
What was the
have,
address on that? Sorry?
that one is the 400 block of North Canada.
Okay.
Verizon Wireless. Then we have 220 Gray Street, which was approved as submitted with conditions. And 824 Vine Avenue, which was approved as submitted with conditions. 3714 State Street was final approval as submitted with conditions. 1127 Bath Street was also had positive comments to the on the project, but I think it still needs to get needs some waivers, so it was comments only, and to the staff hearing officer review. So it'll come back. 312 Ranchera Street was approved as submitted, and 815 East Mason was approved as submitted with just some recommendations on painting the electric housing.
Okay. So we need a first and a second for approval of the minutes for today, for the consent calendar.
Well, first,
Amy, first by Amy, a second by
I'll second.
Kevin. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
I couldn't, for example, first and second, right? Because
I think,
that was the one there. It's like,
I mean, can you clarify that? Can Howard make the motion, either a first or a second, for approval of the minutes that he's already approved? I mean, he was the one on the consent calendar. Can he
Yes.
also be the,
Yes.
he can make the motion?
Yes, he can.
Yeah. Okay, so we're on to today's agenda. Item number 1.
No. I
No?
think we have some
Oh, sorry.
announcements.
Announcements.
I do have just that we have Commissioner Kung and Hopkins are absent today.
Mr. Chair, I also have 3 announcements. I wanted to point out that based on some previous discussions with our boards, that we have changed our templates on our agendas to include public hearing procedures. Those are the steps there, just to give applicants more heads up about what to expect as they come to our meetings. One of the discussions that we've had with the boards is trying to limit their actual presentation time. The Historic Landmarks Commission has tried to incorporate 1/3 the time allocated for the agenda. I don't know if you all want to do that, but if we're trying to manage the time. Obviously, meetings are going long, so trying to limit those presentations. Along those lines, also, the city staff is coming up with additional submittal requirements to help you make determinations on compatibility for multi-unit projects. That was the outcome of a special subcommittee with the Planning Commission and board members. And you'll be seeing a presentation to go over the potential for adding additional assessment tools for context and so forth. So you'll be seeing that in the near future. And then finally, we have an appeal on a wireless facility that was approved on Grove Lane that's scheduled for tomorrow. And I believe I've contacted Mr. Hopkins, and as of last week, he said he could represent the board tomorrow. It was a short notice because of the time shot clock provisions of these types of facilities. And if I can't get him, because he obviously canceled today, I'll be calling one of you who participated. I think only 4 of you were there. You remember that one where they were going to put it on ground-mounted equipment versus pole-mounted. And just FYI, if you haven't read the staff report, we don't normally go against your approvals, but in this case, I am recommending to place the equipment into cabinets as opposed to all on the pole. So
Okay.
you might want to consider that in future.
On the ground.
On the ground in equipment pedestals as opposed to placing it all on the pole. And as you consider these, you do have options to either put them in pedestals, vaults, or on the poles. Those are your 3 options to consider. Sure.
So we have one item, the ex-agenda item that's
Yes.
coming today is the Verizon project. And I have a question for you, and that is that this project, the Verizon project, came to me by myself at this
Yes.
today, whereas it was referred to the consent by the full committee. And there were 3 conditions, and is it Public Works Department? Or
Yes, they
said-
wrote in your
simply
memo.
said, we're not going to comply with 2 and 3.
Right.
So
So,
rather than approve that myself, I referred them to the full committee.
right.
This
That's
full committee.
That's appropriate. And I'll be back. I have to run over to City Council, and I'm hoping to be back for that item so I can give you some guidance on just some new resistance from Public Works to not require landscaping in the parkways because of the drought conditions and planting and maintenance. They just do not want to support that at this time. So you might have to relax that requirement at this point.
About the board member to appear at the appeal, I thought I saw an email from Scott mentioning that typically the one who made the motion is the one that goes to the appeal.
I believe that's what he
And
said.
That would be board member Kuhn.
Well, Kuhn's out, and I haven't had a response from him, so I believe Scott Hopkins said he would.
Okay.
But I'm going to try to track them down, because again, staff is requesting a design change, so if you want to insist that the pole-mounted equipment stay, you'd have to come and argue that point.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Subcommittee reports.
And I have one announcement. I'm stepping down from item number 3,
Right.
116 East Coda.
Okay, thanks. Any subcommittee reports today? All right, now we can start the agenda. 721 Cliff Drive. This is a new item, a proposal to add a 675 square foot raised wood deck and minor exterior upgrades to the existing Santa Barbara City College bookstore.
Mr. Chair, if I can open up before the introduction is, because I do have to run. This is a courtesy review only, and again, overall assessment of the proposal. It's pretty minor compared to other buildings the City College has proposed, so hopefully we can give them some feedback that it's consistent with our guidelines.
Okay, thanks. Yes, this is courtesy review only. Comments? Hi.
Hi. So I'm Julie Hendricks. I'm the Senior Director of Facilities Planning and Campus Development. I'm presenting the project today. It's a pretty small one, like Jaime said, compared to the others that we brought before you. But it is in alignment with our long-range development plan that we go through this process. So I'll just run through you real quickly. The front page just essentially illustrates the existing facility and the primary corner where the exterior deck will be added onto it. The facility is undergoing this renovation. It was built about 25 years ago and just really needs a facelift to kind of recharge the activities that are in there. This is a self-sustaining facility on the college campus. The funds that are generated within this facility continue to pay for it, and so it's really important that we continue to keep this successful. So within, it's on the East Campus. It's located adjacent to the prior project that you guys reviewed, the Campus Center Replacement Project. And in the package, I had submitted some of the same photo ops that we took for Campus Center just to really illustrate it's an incredibly low-profile building that's very visually low impact.
Should we just briefly go through those?
Sure.
You could just quickly.
Yeah, so that's just here's the existing facility. This building will be torn down with the Campus Center. And so this is just kind of the side portion where there will now be a new big courtyard. Some of the existing windows, this one is the one that will be torn out and demolished so that we can create the door access to go out onto the new deck. This is the location of the new deck that will just literally sit on top of the existing raised planter walls. Again, that's that same general perspective on that. The one column remains. It's just the cover piece for the column is removed. And then here's the main entry, and here's another area where we're just going to do some basic enhancements, replacing the existing storefront with a new storefront system, just to make it a slightly more, welcoming approach. As you can see, it's pretty dated. And then I also added this one. This was our, in conversation with the Coastal Commission, they had encouraged us to plant some natives, and so we are going to relocate the 2 existing palms to the other side of campus and then plant the 4 new native trees. And so I just wanted to illustrate where we were going to do that. Okay?
Okay.
There's those. And so you can see it's right in the heart of our East Campus. This is a lot of where, student activity happens. And so the new exterior deck will be on this corner down here. It has a really fantastic view out over onto the ocean. Down here is the ocean, West Campus, Cliff Drive up here. So it's nestled in the heart of the East Campus, and like I said, it's probably about a 25-year-old facility. And then this is getting down to a larger site plan. And this just really illustrates, so here's that main entrance that you saw a photo of, and then here's that kind of side, that first picture that we were looking at. And then this whole area, as if you guys remember, will soon become a big plaza area with our new campus center over here. So it has a really nice relationship for the students to be able to interact now. And again, we're just really trying to get a lot more visual interest into the facility. So here's where the new deck is being inserted. That entry that I showed you where that existing window will be demolished is right about there. As the students utilize the cafe or purchase a coffee, essentially the goal is for them to come out and be able to enjoy the new deck with this, like I said, very, very nice view outward. We're essentially just taking the existing raised planter walls and not so much using them, but just going above them, adding some new pilings to be able to support the new deck. And this just kind of shows the interior configuration. We did have to add an exit. For security reasons, we were trying to keep it where people couldn't access the facility through the deck just for security. But due to code, we had to add the stairs along the back part there so that people could use that for egress.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then this just kind of shows the existing condition that's going to be demolished. There's not much that happens on the exterior in terms of the demolition, but the dash portion here is showing where the deck wraps around there. And here's kind of, so you better understand what the deck is serving, is that we are inserting a small cafe, Starbucks type operation within the bookstore facility. And so this will actually have tables and chairs sitting out there. And then just showing this is going to be a Trex deck type system, composite material. Those work really well at the college. They're really easy to maintain, and they uphold really well. And then here's just a more enlarged photo or a plan of that. So coming out here and being able to access this whole area out here. Here's those exit stairs that'll wrap around and with a pathway that'll just connect with the existing site work. And then the basic elevations that show, again, it's just taking primarily the existing facility and giving it a bit of a facelift. We're keeping the white exterior facade. We're not changing that. And taking a lot of the finishes and just cleaning them up. We are adding a few storefronts and painting some of the existing storefronts. We've had great success with taking that material and giving it a nice finish material. And then for the new deck system, it has a railing system with down below are the redwood planks. And here you get slightly a little bit more understanding of that. And so I think for what you're interested in, I think the rest are just details that really kind of, drill down more into the actual construction of it. But this gives you a sense of the materiality and the existing building.
Okay. Is there any revised landscaping that goes along with it?
There really isn't. We're not doing much to it since we're just putting the deck over the existing landscape. Like I said, the tree relocation is kind of the extent of it.
Okay. I suppose we're supposed to open for public comment. Anyone here that'd like to comment on this project? Seeing no one, will take questions from the board. Amy?
In terms of the material, so you're using the Trex on the actual deck, but then transitioning it to redwood? Is there a reason you're not going to use the same material?
I think it was essentially just the contrast. And also with the adjacent campus center, there's a lot of wood on the exterior of that facility, and I think they were actually trying to tie visually the two of them together.
Redwood or?
Oh, I can't remember the name. It's like it's a composite wood material.
What's the color of the Trex material that you're going to use?
I don't think that's been selected yet.
And then as far as the railing, it'll just be aluminum? You won't do like a wood cap or anything?
I'm not sure about a wood cap. I don't believe so.
There is a detail.
Yeah, it just is aluminum right now.
Okay.
So I was just wondering,
Okay.
just like tying the wood into the railing. And then you're not doing any new landscaping, you said?
No.
Just keeping existing?
Kevin?
So there's no opportunity to do a little bit of landscaping in front of the redwood?
No,
area?
it's
Not at all,
flat
it's
work, concrete flat work.
It's just too tight.
Okay. That's it. Courtney?
I know you did mention the impacts to the existing trees, but can you talk a little bit more about that?
There's currently just two palms, I think they're Canary Island palms, that we're going to
Is that these two?
Yes, that we're going to actually relocate over to the west campus, over by our drama music facility. And then because the new deck will be stepping into that zone, we're going to be adding the four, I can't remember the name of the tree, it's somewhere. the four newer trees just along the furthest edge of where the existing plaza is.
As part of the other plan,
Very close to this facility. I
Okay.
think
but it's not indicated on this plan.
it's not indicated on this plan,
Okay.
no.
So I'm just trying to understand, there is an existing planter here, and that's part of the area that you intend to encompass with the deck.
Cover over, correct.
So when you say cover over, you're essentially installing a deck right on top of this wall, correct? So this planting would be removed and impacted, as well as, these palms and then anything that's happening in grade on this side? Is that correct? Okay, that's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
thanks. Howard?
What is the material of this siding understory
That's the redwood planks.
boards, redwood boards?
I believe so, yeah.
So it's kind of open and partial. And what is going on underneath here where it overhangs, spills over the existing wall? And so the plants are going away, and you have is the stair the undercarriage of the stair concealed by this redwood, or
Right, yes, correct.
we see it over here? Doesn't look like it's concealed.
I believe that's because they're taking a section cut through that and would be looking back at it. But I believe the goal is to use that as a skirting to cover up.
This is, I think, what you're seeing in front of this before you turn that corner.
Well, I see masonry here, and I see
That's
something
here.
else here. Yes.
Is this, yeah, so that's a question. Is this like masonry, and then this looks like the tiles that are here? Are these tiles, or what is
This is a
going
facing material.
Uh-huh.
That's, I believe it's a tile type material. It's just going to be
Oh, it is.
remain, right,
Oh,
exact
okay.
concrete
Oh, okay.
tile type material.
And then it looks like it changes right at that corner. That seems kind of odd that they would not carry it right around that corner there. Maybe it's just a drafting issue.
I think it's the existing wall that's sticking out.
Corner wedge-shaped piece.
You know, this is the column right here, and then this is the corner where it actually turns. So what we're seeing here, can you see that right there? We're seeing faced material here and facing material there, but in this drawing, the facing material is up to the corner, and then there's something else.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I think that's probably a drafting issue more than it is an intention to change on the edge of that.
What is this material here?
The railing is, why can I not remember the wire?
Stranded steel, twisted stainless steel cable?
Yeah, yes.
And what are
Cable
the
rail, yeah.
Cable rail, thank
cable
you.
rail? What are these? Wood, or are they metal, or aluminum?
There is a detail. It's back several pages.
They're aluminum. On A295.
Well, while we're looking for that, are these foundation?
Those are the
For-
pilings. Those are the 14, 16-inch pilings that are supporting the deck, yes.
And so it looks like in some cases they're showing, and in other cases they're covered up.
Right, and I believe that's the way that is drawn, because the intention is not to have those things showing. The intention is to have the skirting of the deck concealing
That's not what I
all
would
that.
think. I
Yeah.
mean, it's a basic
So-
concept.
So this we'll get to the railing here in a minute, but, so this stair comes down, steps off onto this walkway, and this skirting stops and runs up into this little point here, and then continues around.
That must be that little point, huh?
So this is,
Yeah.
okay. And so then over here, we see, yeah, I'm not really understanding this piece here, I guess, yeah. And this is then the same masonry, which really isn't masonry, it's facing. This is an architectural piece that's like a prow that's
Veneer.
sticking out. right here.
Yeah. It's just,
And so then we would be seeing all these, seeing all these are caissons, right?
well, she just said that
Yeah.
she believes they're supposed to be covered up, so maybe if we look at the detail, we can see
Yeah,
how
if you
that's
look at
covered up.
the plan, I believe they're all behind the wood slats.
skirting.
If you look at the plan, I think it's just a drafting.
There's also a detail through that deck edge that should show it. You know what sheet the detail is on?
A295
This way.
is where, yeah, you get the cut through.
Here we are. So it does show them popping out. Footing, see structural.
These footings are shown in here as being pulled back in, as opposed to being proud of the
The
siding.
caissons are, we don't have structural details in here.
I
do
didn't
we? No, okay. Well, so we could make that a comment. All right, so we'll go to comments. Amy?
Yeah, and we're just doing comments
Yes.
only.
Yep.
So, I mean, I think in general, it would probably be a nice amenity for this building for the students, especially given the view and its relationship to the new building that you're putting next door. I think in regards to sort of what we were just talking about, maybe just clarifying between the plan and the details. I think ideally it would be nice to have that wood sort of cover most of the footing, especially if you won't have planting there. I think aesthetically it will look better. And also, I mean, if there is any opportunity for any type of planting, I mean, I think that would only enhance that corner of the building since there is planting there right now. But generally, I think that it'll be a good addition to the building.
Okay, thank you. Kevin?
Couple of comments. Yeah, I agree. It'll be a nice change for the building. The one issue I have is it seems sort of an indirect location. It'd certainly be a lot nicer, and I understand you have your constraints. If you could come out the door straight onto the actual seating area instead of coming out and going around the corner of the building, I think it'd be a lot more successful if it was a direct path and you get a lot more people sitting out there enjoying the view. And then I would really encourage you, to find some way to screen or get something green in front of that wall, because it's pretty tall. It gets up there pretty high. There must be a way to get some vine pockets or something down there to get something growing in front of it. And I think there's a little bit of a discrepancy between your plan view and your detail here. I would encourage you to investigate detail 24, where you're showing the foundation for the new piers to hold this deck. If there's a way to pull that foundation back underneath the deck and find a way for that skirting to come down in front of that, that would be visually a lot more successful, I think.
That's detail 24, sheet A295.
Correct. And that's it.
Thanks. Courtney?
I think this is a nice project. It'll be a nice improvement for the students from a functionality standpoint. I think I agree with Kevin's comment regarding getting something to kind of soften the front of that deck, the wall that extends down below the deck. Regarding the two palms, It's difficult to understand based on the drawings, but it looks like, based on the aerial, that they do provide some balance with the palms on the other side of that stair. So I would encourage you to study that. And I know they're right in the middle of where you want to put your deck, but there might be another way to approach where those get located after they come out. They're Washingtonia robusta, so they should be good candidates for relocation. I'm just more concerned about the validity of the existing stair and how much sense that makes from a design standpoint after you add the deck on the left side. Otherwise, I think it's a good project.
Okay, thank you. Howard?
I agree with the comments. Can't really add anything new or different. Yeah, I think it'll be nice. Maybe one comment. I do have a suggestion that rather than having a mix of redwood and Trex, that you go either fish or fowl. So it's, I don't know that contrasting materials like that really add to the architectural character. Anyway, that's just a suggestion.
I don't have anything to add to those comments, so appreciate your coming by and taking the time to make a presentation.
Thank you
so
Thanks a lot.
I may ask for just maybe some overall big picture comments for the Coastal Commission, like no negative visual impact.
Okay,
Something like that's what he whispered in my ear.
all right.
So if any of you can address that for the Coastal Commission. I think you sort of said the project just has minor details that are.
Yeah, so universally the board felt that this was an appropriate project for the building and the site, a great amenity for the students, and that with some minor enhancements could be a real visual enhancement as well.
Great.
How's that?
Great.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Item number 2, 927 East Ortega Street. This is also a new item. Proposal to construct a new 467 square foot, one-story detached accessory dwelling unit and uncovered parking space to the rear of an existing 943 square foot, one-story single-family dwelling on a 5,000 square foot parcel. Also proposed is to demolish 65 square feet from the existing residence and construct a one-story, 143 square foot addition on the front elevation. Other proposed work will include the following: legalize an as-built carport, replace a 692 square foot concrete driveway with a 1,238 square foot permeable driveway, demolish an existing rear patio cover, replace windows in the same openings, add a new garage door, and a change in building finish from wood to stucco. Landscape changes will include the removal of one orange tree and a planter from the front yard and the removal of 3 trees, a peach, a fig, and poinsettia from the rear yard. Comments only. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Andreas Blomst,
I'm Shannon Blomst.
and this is our primary residence. We were fortunate to be able to buy a few years ago in Santa Barbara and are looking to make some improvements. The changes, yeah, should I go here maybe? Actually, I'm brand new at this, so.
Okay, yeah, we'll help you out.
Okay.
No worries.
So,
Actually, it's generally helpful to start with photographs. If
There's some in the
there
back.
should have been some submitted with the
Yes.
project,
Yes.
and we can pull those out.
We also brought a couple more too.
yeah,
Oh, did you?
of the trees and such.
Yeah.
Thank you. So this looks like the front.
Yes.
Yeah, the existing front of the house. This is the side next to the driveway. And then we should have,
That's the side.
yeah,
Yeah. East side.
this is exactly
Yeah.
east side, and then the back as it currently exists.
Okay.
And then we have a street view here. This is adjacent properties and existing surrounding. So on Ortega, where we're located, on our side of the street is single story the whole way. On the opposite side, there's some double story properties.
Yeah,
Yeah.
across the street.
Okay.
Yep.
Very good.
Yeah.
And then we can look at the site plan here.
Yeah.
This is the demo? This is the
demo.
demo plan.
Correct. This is the demo
Okay.
plan.
Want to just point out the most important
Yeah.
aspect?
So of the main existing residence, there's a sitting room in the front right now that will be demoed, and that's going to be replaced by a larger bedroom. The small other things, the carport, the existing gap between the footings of the carport and the property line are 4 feet. We're moving those 1 foot over to allow for a better parking arrangement. And then the 4 trees will be removed as well, and the existing cement driveway will be removed. So, and some modifications to the back patio will be removed, and also there's a cement slab here that will be removed.
Okay.
Yeah. So the demo floor plan.
Probably don't need to spend too much time on that. Looks like the front porch, as you
Correct.
mentioned,
Yes.
side stairs,
Yeah.
and the trees, so they're kind of the big things, right?
The front door will be also relocated. I apologize for not mentioning that before.
Okay.
To the
Basically,
front addition, yeah.
to the front addition, yes.
And then the footings for this trellis, they're being moved into the, or outside the setback?
They'll
or
be
are they gonna
moved
stay?
1 foot closer to the existing property lines. They'll be
Okay.
right on the setback
Okay.
line.
And this is the new site plan?
New
Correct.
Okay.
So you see here the larger front room here, and the stairs that go to the front door, which is now going to be located right here. Previously it was located here. And then we're going to add a smaller pergola, I guess, or I don't know what
Yeah,
you call it.
Trellis?
Trellis,
Trellis,
thank you.
yeah.
Trellis back here, just for outdoor space. And this rear unit here that's going to be attached to the existing single car garage, which will be a 1 bedroom unit, separate bathroom, living room.
And then we'll be covering the carport
Yes.
as, yeah.
Continuing with the same roofing material. Right now, as we bought the house, it has a cloth, shade cloth or something like that on it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
this is the new parking plan. I spoke with Dan from Transportation about it, and he was the one who wanted to see the post moved out a little bit, and we also added some planter boxes to give us some vegetation along the property line there. They'll be mobile, but just to have some green space. This gray area here will be permeable paving. We have a couple different ideas, but it's something that allow rainwater to absorb, as opposed to right now, because it's all concrete, it just runs.
Yeah,
So,
and runs back.
yeah, it runs the wrong way.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then,
That could be a problem.
yeah.
That's why you'll see sandbags in our photos.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. This is just showing private outdoor spaces, open space. We want to maintain as much greenery as possible, so we don't plan on doing, a lot of solid hardscape. Thank you. Yeah. But yeah, shows there. So we're meeting the outdoor space requirements.
Okay, great.
And then this would be the new floor plan. So you can see that this would be the new unit here. Outdoor storage, bathroom, bedroom, closet, and the kitchen, living room. Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Good. And then just some elevations from different directions so you can see.
This is what we really like to look at, so.
We also have a material board. It's the little one we brought, if you guys want to take a look at. And these are pictures of the existing trees on the property. I'm not sure that the points in yet is actually a tree, but it might be a bush.
So, let's see, let's just kind of walk through these. So this shows, Is this the new unit in the back?
This is the new
existing?
unit, yeah.
Yeah.
So this is as though you're standing in the driveway,
Uh-huh.
looking back.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it looks like you have a 12-foot plate on this section.
Yeah, we're trying not to go above what the existing elevation is from the street.
Uh-huh,
We want to
okay.
kind of keep consistent with that. And
Uh-huh.
then we didn't want to go 2 stories because our neighbors that surround us are all single
Mhm.
level.
Yeah, our neighbor on one side, they're very supportive, but they simply asked if we could try to keep it single story for privacy and things like that.
Yeah.
So
Uh-huh.
we're trying to,
Is it asphalt shingle roof?
yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so this is the back of the new unit,
Yes.
and this is,
This is looking at the back of the existing unit.
okay, so here's that new
The
trellis.
new trellis,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
And this is a
That's the-
portion of the new unit, right? Is that right, or no?
Yeah, it's kind of an outline of the garage.
Okay,
Like it's kind of being cut a little bit.
okay.
Yeah.
And is this roof, this is the, what is this roof? Oh, that's this,
That's the new roof. Yeah.
coming out.
Yeah, this is the
Okay,
garage.
this one here, you're seeing this
Yes,
side of that.
correct.
We'll also be replacing the garage door. It existing has like a door type garage door.
Yeah,
And so we'll more modern
the
Uh,
automatic.
garage door.
Mhm.
And then we'll stay with the exact same color windows, just replacing older ones with newer dual pane
Yeah, and keeping
and the existing.
the grids or the guides.
Yeah.
Like we have already.
Okay.
So,
Do you have a roof plan? No.
we don't
No,
have
okay.
yeah.
There is?
Yeah, the site plan just shows the
With this,
the arrows and everything, the direction. They're just keeping it simple gable.
oh, there we go, yeah.
Yeah, so just simple gable here and then a lower, I guess, shed roof here. And then this is the existing gable roof on the one-car garage.
I see it now, yeah.
So is there a valley in here somewhere where these intersect?
This is lower. So there's a gutter that actually will run along there.
Actually,
Yes,
isn't this higher?
yes.
It's lower.
These are about the same height, but yes, there should be a little line there.
You can see.
I
Yeah.
see.
Yeah, that's just missing.
And so this is a ridge,
Correct.
and this is sheds that way?
No,
It's there, too.
yeah,
Oh, a
it's really
ridge.
hard to see,
Okay.
but there's a line there. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's gonna still be a gable roof. It's what is already there, just everything's just getting shifted.
Yeah.
And this is the carport,
Correct.
sheds this way.
Correct.
Okay, so we'll, you don't have any landscape to propose other than what you've shown us for open area and so on, right?
Correct.
And the removal of the trees. All right. So we'll open up public comment on this project. Is there anyone that would like to comment? Seeing none, we'll go to questions from the board, and we can start with Amy again.
For the driveway, it's like 16 feet. Do you think it'll be easy to park in the carport and have someone park in the garage? Because the garage would be for the one-bedroom, right?
Yes, well, the uncovered space will be for the new one-bedroom. And then what we were told from transportation is that the one-car spot in the garage and the one-car covered spot under the carport is for the main unit.
Yeah, the main unit is allowed to have tandem parking from what we understand. And then the additional parking will be here. Moving the post over for the carport facilitates the ability for these cars not to be tandem parked.
Yeah.
Okay. So the one that would be for the one-bedroom unit is you said uncovered, but it'll be under a carport, right?
No, the third spot will be uncovered,
Okay.
which is down here. And then you have the carport spot, and then
the
you'll
garage.
have the garage.
Okay.
Yes.
And then as far as all of the finishes and everything, you're just matching the existing?
Yeah.
No,
Or
we're
you,
currently the siding on the house is like plywood or very weird material. It's going to be removed and replaced with stucco. But
the
both
smooth
units will
stucco.
match, and then new front door and a garage door that will match, not like a darker wood. That'll also match the railings along the front porch area.
are they all new windows also?
All of them except for, is it four or
I
five?
think.
We're actually trying to reuse, there's one large one that's in the front currently. We want to reuse that one and replace the one in the kitchen because they're actually pretty close to the same size. Because the one in the kitchen is just an old single pane
Yeah.
aluminum.
The previous owner had updated a few of the windows to dual pane, nice new, Goldwyn or whatever, Goldwyn. So we're going to try to match the 4 existing updated ones and just replace the old single pane. Also, we are removing currently along the front of the property is a chain link fence and a chain link driveway, and that's all coming out, and nothing's.
Not a chain link driveway, a gate.
Gate.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was there when we bought the house, and that's also coming out.
yeah.
Are you putting in a new gate?
No
No.
gate. Yeah.
That's all.
Okay, Kevin.
Just a couple of questions. On the driveway, so it's all permeable paving all the way back to the garage and then continuing around to the new entry for the back unit?
For the entry for the back unit, we want to do like paving stones, like nice pavers. And we were looking at, we still haven't chosen the exact material, but we were looking at something that might allow for some green space as well as have a little bit of a walkway there.
Well, yeah, we kind of just printed a few things. We were kind of looking at, something like this or like a ribbon driveway where you could have some kind of DG or something in the middle.
You can pass that if you'd like.
Other questions?
And then these photos are representative of what, for instance, the elevation there, is that representative of what you were hoping?
This one's 920, right across the street from us. And that's kind of where we kind of pulled our materials from. Because they have the smooth stucco, and then they just have the shingle roof, and they're a 3-bedroom, and so we just kind of wanted to,
Keep that
they have the
same.
window trim as well, the wood window trim, and we like that. So, and then this I just brought in is it's just sample, I guess, just showing the windows and the trim, and then the smooth stucco.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Courtney.
I have some questions about the pavers as well. I'm just trying to understand, and it sounds like maybe you're still in the process of designing the driveway area and hardscape, but is the intent to extend all the way up to the building face here and then all the way up to the property line on the other side?
Yes.
So no landscape buffer between?
Just the
Just the
planters,
planters,
the
yeah.
little planters.
Is
yeah.
there a reason why you would choose planter boxes on top of hardscape rather than just
I think we would
ending
rather
the
have
hardscape early?
We were under the impression that widening the driveway was required for the parking, but
For
that might be a
maneuverability?
Yeah.
I don't think it is, in my opinion, but that could not be correct. So we could easily leave these open, and we would like to leave these open for green space instead. That would be preferred. You know.
And so this is your existing stair into the front door?
No,
of
this is
front unit?
the
This would be the
proposed,
new.
the new. Yeah.
This is new, okay. So then I'm looking at this photo here.
Yeah.
And it looks like there is a planter there between the
There-
porch and this pop out. So that would be here.
Correct.
Yeah.
So you're intending to park in that area
Correct.
and relocate the stair further down?
Yes, correct.
Okay, and then the plan did show the chain link fence here. So just to make sure I'm clear, the intent is to remove that completely and
Yes.
not have a new fence at the front?
Correct.
Okay. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Howard?
Yes, is there a reason why you were going to a lot of trouble to remove the shiplap siding, and which is a style,
Yes.
and replace it with stucco?
Yeah, in the front of the house, it appears that it doesn't go all the way to the ground because there's like a brick facade, but on the sides, it runs all the way to the ground. And because of the existing situation with the property, it's gotten absorbed moisture when it's rained, and so it's falling apart towards the bottom of the house. And so we had to either choose to replace it or find a new material. And in speaking with a couple contractors around town, we were told that this particular material is actually supposed to be installed vertically, not horizontally, because when it's horizontal, it collects water in these grooves, and it's a wood product, which makes sense because it's starting to separate and delaminate. So we were told that we would need to redo the whole house, not just the damaged area closer to the ground.
Well, this is not shiplap siding.
No.
No,
T111.
It's almost as though like it's just plywood with like a groove.
with a groove cut in it is
Yeah.
what it
Yeah.
looks like, yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're right.
Is this a raised wooden floor?
Horizontal.
Yes,
So you're going to have a crawl space and ventilation and all that?
yes.
Yes.
Okay, that's all I want to know.
I missed your response to one question. The window material is what? Did you decide? Have you decided that?
The actual windows,
Yeah.
just to match the existing, which are, what are they?
The vinyl, I think, is
Yeah.
like the plastic vinyl.
Oh,
Yeah.
the existing,
Like
existing windows
this
on the
window
house?
right here, you
This
can
one,
see.
yeah, this is the one that
This is what we're gonna match.
Okay. all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, this is the old ones.
This one is actually gonna go in place of that. We wanted to reuse that, because it's a nice, I think it's Pella. It's a Pella.
Pella,
window.
that's what it was,
That's
yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
And so four windows that currently are there match this style and brand, and the rest are older like that.
So the older ones are wood sash and frame,
No, they're aluminum
Yeah.
frame,
or aluminum?
and some are black and some are like the metal color and single pane. So I don't think they're necessarily original to the house, but they're probably 30, 40 years old.
All right. Oh, so we're done with questions, and we'll go on to comments.
One more quick question
Okay.
on the elevations on A201. On number 6, on the new portion. And just wondering, does this roof actually come all the way over? Or is this one face?
I think the roof does come all the way over. I think what you're seeing is, because it jogs a little bit, I think you're actually seeing a wall further back, I believe.
This wall jogs?
I think
This
in the
one right
back.
here, which is the main part of the,
That's the side of the garage in the front.
let's look at the
That should
plan.
be, that should not, between the
Yeah,
garage and the
it's
new
a
unit, that doesn't
Drawing.
jog. Let's take a look. Yeah, see, this is not jogging right there.
But, so one wall we're seeing is this wall coming across.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't it just go straight across? Does it jog, or does it jog?
It
If
does jog.
Does it jog way back like that? Because that's not represented either on
Yeah.
the elevation.
I believe,
Maybe on the roof plan. Let's look on the roof plan.
Yeah.
This shows full gable
Because
here.
that's,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what
Yeah.
I was, so maybe,
and then this is just like a shed roof, but it sits
Right.
lower.
So that's an
comes
error on the
off,
elevation
so-
then.
okay,
Yeah.
This-
the drawing.
okay,
This
so it
stops
just
right
stopped there.
there.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Good catch. Kevin? Do you want to start with comments, Amy?
Sure. I think overall, I think it works out. It's definitely a tight site plan, and I think seeing an actual landscape plan would be really helpful too, because then we could see where the paving versus planting, or if you have like the stepping stones, which I think is a nice idea. And I think on that note, it would be nice to have some relief from the paving, from the edges of along the property line, and then especially along the edges of the house, just like even if it's a small buffer. And then I think too, the entry into the new unit might be nice to have. Maybe it's like a surround or some sort of like definition. You have a little porch on the front of the house or the front house. Maybe there's something that kind of, and maybe it will be the path that will lead you there, but maybe it's recessed a little bit or. But yeah, overall, I think it makes sense the way you've kind of laid it out. Look forward to seeing the landscape.
Okay, thank you. Kevin?
I guess one of my comments is it's a little odd to drive through the carport into the garage, whether you end up parking in the garage or not remains to be seen. But it's a little funny, but maybe it works. Then I would, honestly, for a house this size, I would encourage you to look again at the siding instead of the plaster or the stucco. I think it's like much like the photo you've provided. It seems to be more in scale with that type of house. So if you can get some feedback on what that costs versus a stucco, I think I would encourage you to look at that. And the backyard is definitely tight. I mean, you're really shoehorning a lot in there. But I guess that's the best you can do. I'm agree with Amy. Maybe there's a way to get a little bit of better sense of where that rear unit front door is. Maybe there's a way to announce that some way as you're coming up the driveway, as well as getting a little bit of buffer of landscape along the property line. And when you do come back, definitely want to see lighting, any exterior lighting, and the landscape.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. Courtney?
I think this is a nice project. I would like to see more information on the hardscape and agree with the comments specifically regarding having a in-grade planter buffer between the driveway and the property line and up against your house as well. Even if it doesn't get planted right away, you'll want the ability to have some kind of softening in those areas long-term. I didn't get a chance to ask about the orange tree. Would you mind explaining why you want to remove that?
We don't want to remove it.
Oh.
Yeah, we love the orange tree. But
Oh, okay.
But
I think it's on here
It's noted as a
being
removal.
removed.
yeah,
yes.
Okay, great, because it does look like quite a nice tree. It looks healthy and,
it's grafted. It's half lemon, half orange.
Yeah,
Oh.
so we'd
Yeah.
like to keep it, but we were under the impression that we had to remove it in order to make space for
Parking.
parking.
can we flip back to the site plan then? Am
It
I-
was-
No. Yes, we can.
It was in efforts to widen the driveway.
Okay, so that's approximately the location of the tree.
Yes.
And then where's your,
Could I just interject one thing? Because I think a lot of us have questions about the driveway configuration and all the hardscape. Did you get a chance to review this with transportation?
Yeah, I
You
spoke
did.
with
Oh.
Dan from Transportation.
Okay.
And
And-
we made some revisions based on his recommendations.
And did that involve pushing this, making the
Correct.
carport bigger? That was
Yeah.
one of the
but
things?
there's posts here, so I don't see
Yeah.
why you would need that on that side. You can't use it as maneuverable space.
Drags there anyways.
So
Well, maybe it's
potentially
for
in
getting-
front, but
I don't know if it's for getting out. But, and it was removal of that tree also part of that discussion?
Yeah, he, it may be a misunderstanding on our part, but it sounded like they wanted uniform width so that when you're backing out, you don't have to, we wouldn't mind at all if we had to jog just a little bit to
Okay.
get out of our driveway,
Okay.
but it sounded like they like a straight shot.
All right.
I would encourage you to address that with transportation and see if there's any leeway to pull both sides in. Maybe they're both straight and it can be a narrower drive. You've got a 20-foot 4 driveway width and a 16-foot driveway apron, so there might be some ability there. I would like to see you keep this orange tree, especially if it's fruiting and providing good fruit for you. And that's important to the streetscape as well, and visuals of your property from the public way. I can support the removal of the other trees. They mostly appear to be volunteers, and I'm not sure if this is a poinsettia, but I don't know what it is, and it just doesn't look significant. And the peach appears to be in decline. So otherwise, I look forward to more information on hardscape materials and planting.
Okay, thanks. Howard?
Well, I agree with the previous comments, and I think this has the potential for being a very cute house, cute property. I do have to say that I'm more partial to wood siding than I am to stucco for this style. This is a cottage-style house.
Okay.
And also with the windows, if you get into the vinyl windows with these lights, it's going to be basically plate glass with these bars inside the glass, and it will look very fake. So, and also you have two different approaches here. In this photograph, you have a heavy trim around the outside, and here in the old windows you have no trim or very light trim, and then here you have some kind of a pedimented thing over that. I would choose one.
Absolutely.
And make it the cottage choice. And if you are determined to go with vinyl windows, then maybe use a trim that allows you to deep set your windows and develop a detail so that the windows look more like they're deep, in a thick wall.
Yes.
Not because it's a plaster wall, but because it just it looks very tacky when this is all pushed to the surface.
Yep.
I see you have Craftsman light fixture here, which I think this is great, suggesting all the more of having maybe a Craftsman detailing to your house.
Okay.
So there again would be the wood siding with, the corners and the banding and the trim around the windows and doors and that kind of thing. Anyway, it's a nice little charming project.
Thank you.
Thanks, Howard. Let's go to the elevations for a second. Well, actually, while we're here, I'll just tell you what my impression is on this. Even if they're wanting you to have a straight line for back out, there should be no reason why you couldn't do a driveway like that. And
That width right there. If you lined up with the driveway, this is a 16-foot driveway, and went straight back, you'd have a 3-foot strip all along the property line.
Well, I think it could even be narrower than that. I mean, 16 feet is pretty wide for a throat of a driveway. You can get by with 10.
Yeah.
So, I think 12 or 14 is still going to give you plenty of room. And it would perhaps allow you to keep this tree here and have some nice planting along here, which is going to help screen you from your neighbors, and it's just going to be a much nicer project without all that hardscape.
Agreed.
The other thing, you mentioned that part of the reason you were putting this in is because you currently have a slope back to the back of the property.
Towards this residence and the garage.
So you're going to raise this up in order to get the slope out to the street? Is that part of the design?
I don't think we need to raise it. What has happened is the old concrete driveway has cracked, and as it cracks, it shifts. And so if it was simply flat, it would be okay. But it's
Okay.
because it's actually cracked.
Yeah,
Well,
it's just sloping it
that would be
down.
one of my comments, is to verify that.
Okay.
Because you may need to, I noticed that the garage looks like it's about a foot below the bedroom unit level, and it might be wise to just pick that up a foot.
Sure.
Make sure you got positive drainage all the way out to the street, otherwise you're going to be in a hole and you haven't solved your problem. So that's just one comment, but or two, actually. So to narrow, to And it may mean another meeting with the Transportation Department about this to clarify what their intent was and to see, exactly where you can narrow it up. And I would make the same comment about the carport as well. It could be that the reason they wanted you to push this out was because this post would be in the way of this door opening. But if you just had 2 posts instead of 3, then you could bring your carport post back in closer, reduce the size of this roof, and keep it smaller and more in proportion to the kind of quaintness of the design.
Yeah.
So that's, sorry to send you back to them, but I know how this can go. You hear one thing and you go to your plan to draw it up, and you think you're interpreting what they said, but it may not have been the intent.
Right.
The other thing is, this carport roof is right next to the garage roof, and you've got them doing 2 different things. It's like one is canceling the other. And so I would suggest, to me, it seems like the simplest thing would be to make the garage roof also a shed that is, going in this direction. So it's basically a continuation of the shed that you've already got going along there, and maybe you pop it up a little bit higher so you have, a full 8-foot plate at the front of the garage. Let's look at it from the side view, it'd be easier. Yeah.
I think so.
Building over here.
Yeah, it's an existing garage.
Hmm?
The
Oh,
garage
this
is
is
existing.
this is existing. Okay, I didn't
And the
understand that.
carport, it is a few feet, right?
There's
the front of the
Yeah,
garage?
there's 3 or 4 feet between the front of the garage and the.
Yeah.
Back of the building?
On the roof,
Yeah.
on the
Yeah,
roof
it's
plan,
just
it
a
looked like they
carport.
were
No, there's this space.
Yeah.
Right.
there is a
not much
small-
of one, though.
There.
He's saying,
No, it's like 3
this
feet.
is the back of the building,
Yeah,
this is the face of the garage.
right.
He's saying there's about 2 or 3 feet right
Yeah.
there.
Okay, well, it's
They don't-
still, my point is still holds. To me, it's like they're
Sightlines.
working against each other. Visually, they're working against each other. And it looks like one was added later, they wasn't really well thought out. And so I don't know if it's, if you can work it into your program. This is a long way to do a shed. Maybe that idea doesn't work. But to me, it's problematic, and I'm not sure what the answer is. So,
Another option, you could do like a trellis or something, so it's just flat instead of having the roofed carport.
the carport could be a trellis,
Then it would be a little bit more open.
but
Just
it's
as an
not
option.
no, I don't think it could be a trellis. It has to be
Yeah,
covered.
they told us it had
Has to be
covered
roofed.
Yeah.
Okay.
to be
Yeah,
counted as
but-
a
Yeah,
spot.
and it looks like you've got a pretty minimal slope there. What else?
Actually, that's
Oh,
not-
so here's the other thing. So, this to me, I mean, I don't really like these little gables over the windows, but other than that, this is kind of, basic, charming, cottagey look that's going on there. And there's a number of elements that I think are nice. One is the shutters, which it looks like you're not planning to reuse those or add any shutters. And then there's this board, which is like a belly board or waistband. And I don't know if it doesn't look like there's a change of siding, but even that board adds a little, nice proportional division of that wall. And even if you left it plaster, I think, some shutters and putting that board in or leaving it in would really help that front elevation. And maybe there's a couple of other spots where you add shutters, maybe along the driveway, maybe this window gets shutters. They don't have to do it to all of them, but a few select ones that are prominent, I think would add some of the charm that's here back into your project. Those are my comments. So, need a motion, and I would, since I had differing comments from most board members, I'll go through them one by one, and if maybe we'll hear from the rest of the board about whether they concur or not. Well, I think one that we would all like to see is to make sure that the garage, which is an existing garage, so you can't raise it up. That's why it's a foot down.
Yeah.
Well, you're still gonna want a survey that tells you if the garage level is really gonna work for you, because if it's not, you're gonna have a problem. You may need just to demo that and rebuild it.
Right.
So, strong recommendation to study that and to have at least a preliminary survey done to establish that you can get positive runoff to the street on the driveway. Also, study reducing the width of the permeable paving of the driveway, and also the size and width of the carport to whatever extent is possible. Howard's comment about uniformity of treatment for the windows. Typically, we before we'll approve a project, we'll want to see a window detail so we can see, how big the trim piece is, how far the windows are set back in the recess, and what all of that looks like when it comes together. I think there's a number of suggestions made about trying to keep some of the charm that the existing cottage has. One suggestion was, or a couple of folks suggested wood siding. Other suggestions were to add or include shutters
Wainscoting.
and wainscoting.
It's pretty good.
And I don't know if there's a solution to making the carport and the excuse me. So here's the comment. Restudy the relationship between the carport roof and the garage roof. Other comments?
Along those lines, if you study that relationship, you may end up with one flat roof for both, in which one is enclosed, half of it's enclosed for the garage, and the other is open for the carport. But that would become like an intermediate building between the two gable buildings. So you have two buildings with a connecting roof between, but not a pitched roof.
I don't know if they should combine those roofs. I feel like that's too much. I feel like you want to minimize the carport a little bit so that there is maybe more of a space. But I think the elevation of that back unit with the gable at the carport is nice.
So there's different ways to try and resolve it, but right now it's problematic. I think board members would agree that it's a little bit problematic because they conflict in their
Just
in their
like the
lives.
visual sight line when you look down the driveway.
Yeah. All right.
And I
so-
think you touched on the landscape for the along the driveway, but maybe an overall landscape plan too.
Yeah, for all the areas that are being affected by the new work or by the grading, that we should have a landscape plan that shows what you're going to do there.
Your lighting is good.
Thank you.
Craftsman lighting,
Yep.
wherever that is.
Yeah.
So who would like to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Howard. Seconded. Anyone like to second it?
I'll second.
Seconded by Amy. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. However, we also do need to add in
And under discussion, just looking at the entrance to the second unit, maybe defining it more, or at least defining where the path is to get back there.
Okay.
Is that okay with the maker of the motion to add
Yes.
that in? Okay.
The Architectural Board of Review finds that the project qualifies for an exemption from further environmental review under CEQA Guidelines Section 15183, based on the city staff analysis and CEQA Certificate of Determination on file for this project.
So what we didn't talk about is when you'd like to come back. if you think you can get the work done in 2 weeks, we can continue for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah?
2 weeks,
All
absolutely.
right, 2-week continuance.
That's fine.
Back to the full board, or could they come back to the consent calendar?
I think full board.
Yeah,
Full board, okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
at this point, I'm not guaranteeing 2 weeks just because of the queuing factor.
Okay.
So if we can accommodate you, we will. If not, unfortunately, there might be people ahead of you.
Okay.
just get in line.
very good. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
See you next time.
All right.
Thank you.
Item 3, 116 East Coda Street.
Color set.
The fourth concept review, comments only still. And we last looked at this on April 11th.
Chair, I have some comments as soon as you read the minutes.
Okay. You want to read the minutes?
Want me to read first?
Yes.
These here?
Yes.
Okay, 1 through 7.
Reviewed.
The board appreciates the improvements and the changes of the Coda Street facade. Study reducing the eyebrow at the 4th floor as it addresses Coda Street. I'll read them all first. Reconfigure or push back farther away the stair and elevator plan to reduce the impact of the street. Provide some architectural modulation to the south-facing wall, including vertical openings, etc. Study the Coda Street front units to be differentiated from those facing the park elevations. Restudy the corner glass configuration at the northeast corner. Reduce the height of the stair and laundry tower at the rear. You guys have copies of this?
Sure do.
Welcome back.
Welcome, Mr. Chair. Clay Arell with AB Design Studio, architect for the project. And with me is Eric Baer from AB Design Studio and
Sam Maphis, landscape architect.
Hello.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
I do want to preface the.
yes.
Okay.
I mean, please, go ahead.
So, this project is returning back for additional concept review. What's a little unique about the project is we had a previous request to refer the project to the Planning Commission, but the architect has taken the initiative to change the project and try to respond to your comments. So I wanted to just paraphrase 2 things from our ordinance that indicate when and how you should refer a project to the Planning Commission, just as a reminder.
Great.
Prior to granting project for preliminary approval, project review for this project, you can require presentation of the application to the Planning Commission solely for the purposes of obtaining comments regarding the application. So what's normally the type of project you refer would be a project that is proposed for a site which is highly visible to the public. And when you do refer a project, you should indicate clearly what you would like comments on the design to come from the Planning Commission if you feel that you should get some additional opinions on the matter. What happened at the last concept review was a 2-2 tie, a straw vote.
Yeah.
So there was no change in the direction. So I
Right.
think this is what Mr. Orell is going to try to attempt to you today to see if you can satisfy your previous direction.
Okay. Board members understand that? Yep. Okay, very good. And I have a question about, at the end of the motion here, it says board comments. The proposed building is a modern building and not Spanish. Is this something the board said?
Mr. Wittosh said.
I'm usually the one that says that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Why that made it into the motion.
Yeah, because
It was just an under discussion item.
Okay, all right.
I
So,
don't think comments like that should be strange to this board, believe me. I think we should be saying that more and more. Fish or fowl, this is not HLC, but this is definitely Santa Barbara.
If I could interrupt, I think it would be more meaningful if you connect a requirement to that, or that finding.
Yeah.
Either state the reality and indicate you support it or do not support it. if
yeah, it
that's the
should either be
case.
part of the motion or not.
Right,
And
State
then,
an opinion on
because it's confusing to me.
right.
All right. We'll work on that.
Great.
Please,
Okay.
please go ahead, your presentation.
Do you mind if we start here and on the architectural plans? So we're here today as an in-progress review. This is our fourth concept review, and we very much would like the board to reconsider sending us to Planning Commission. We feel that our comments that the board has been making have been on point, and we've been adjusting our project to address your comments, and I feel that we've been moving this forward in a good direction. I think your comments second that as well, and we really want to get moving on this project. So I'm going to use the minutes because they are pertinent to the discussion. Number one, the board appreciates the improvements and the changes of the Coda Street facade. That's just another positive comment. Study reducing the eyebrow at the fourth floor as it addresses Coda Street. So we're going to spend a little bit of time on the front. So I've got these here for y'all, and I'm going to use last version. We were here, and I'm going to address several comments in one.
Is this different?
No.
These are different. This is what you saw last time.
Can we go like this?
Sure, any way you like. This is what you saw at the last hearing, where we had made some alterations to the front, including pushing the unit back on the upper floor, reducing it from a two-story unit to a two-bedroom unit to a one-bedroom unit, thus pulling that back considerably. At the last board hearing, there was some discussion about pushing the stairs back and moving it closer to the property line between our two buildings. So I want to show you that on a site plan. We'll kind of toggle back and forth a little bit if we can. Originally, we had, if you remember, we had the stairs and elevator coming out this way, and we had sort of a green space tucked in behind it. And what we've done is we've pulled it back. Elevator remained in the same location. We've now got our elevator machine room next to that, which originally was over here. And we've reconfigured the stairs so that they come down. And that's effectively opened up this green space, which is, I don't have a scale.
It's like 18 feet or something by
From the
16.
property line, it's about 18 feet back to that line. So that gives us a nice green space kind of at this corner, allows us to get a nice big tree in here, which Sam will talk about when we get there. We also looked at studying a break in the materials on these things and dropping the stair tower down. So we also have the elevator tower and the top of the elevator that we have to deal with, but the stair doesn't have to follow suit, and so we looked at altering that and dropping the height of that down a little bit as well. So, and we kept the openings. These are just, they're not windows, they're openings in the stair tower here that just allow ventilation to come through and whatnot. So that's a change that we made here, which was addressing your item number 3. I think it's also, as we did that, we also studied the eyebrow. So because this was pushed way forward, it's now pushed back. So this eyebrow also pushed back, although it doesn't look like it in this because these are in different planes now. So this is 18 feet back from the property line. This was maybe 10. So this as this pushes back, this also pushed back in its relative relationship to the upper area, and we also pulled it off the corner.
I think it's evident here at the kind of
So
the corner.
I'll kind of show you kind of a before and after. So previously, we had this roof plane kind of coming out like that, and grabbing this double height glass, which is, I think, your comment 6, to look at restudying that. So what we've done is we've pulled it back off the corner, and instead of doing this corner out of glass, we've brought in this element again. Another comment was to not have this unit and this elevation be very similar to these others. So in doing so, we split the mass up, split the materials up. We got some windows in here because as we reduce the glazing, we want to get a little bit extra in these bedrooms. So there's a bedroom here, here, and here. So they have a bedroom, there's a window facing the street, and then there's some windows on this side facing the park. But this has effectively gone to a similar type of vernacular as what we're doing on this side. So we're sort of bookending the elevation. Most of this simplified up a little bit with the material palette. This is the living room area, so we made the windows bigger and got rid of that strip. The list didn't change really at all. And then you'll see the roof, my roof here, is just peeking out past that a little bit because that's 18 feet back instead of being 10. So, and that pulled back as well. As we get to the park side elevation, or kind of walking up the street, if you will, there was a comment from the board last time about not having this sort of backwards 7 repeat itself. So we restudied this corner, as I was just showing you. We went with a simple mass similar to the elevator tower, brought in this element similar to the stair tower, and added some windows in here to get the views and also get some more light into these bedrooms on these floors. Look at the elevations from the front. So again, here's the original version. This was slender, 10 feet off the property line. It's gotten wider now that we've done this, but it's also pushed back 18 feet. The rest of this elevation has changed on the corner where the glass went away, and we've introduced the other materials that are consistent. This is all pretty much remained the same. And this part kind of got infilled here with the new stair. So instead of being slender, it's gotten wider, but it's also back. I just want to make sure everybody understands that. On the east elevation, again, we were addressing the comments on how this unit responds to these units. So we've simplified that up by just having this nice simple plaster mass with some windows in it, and then this other mass here, and then that simplified. The wood siding went away and simplified that as well. One of your comments, I believe, comment 7, reduce the height of the stair and laundry tower at the rear. So that was, this is at the back here, is this stair. This got lower than it was before. It was sticking up. See the difference here? We've dropped that down in the back. We've also reconfigured the units that are on the south end of the building, so you can see the difference between this and this. That was here before. We've pulled it all the way back. That allows us to get more planting to wrap the corner. It reduces that mass considerably. And then we've also cut into the building a bit so that we can further create a little undulation in the back wall of that structure. Most of this has remained unchanged in here except for the height differential. On the other side, this is looking from the French press side. So at the front, of the Coda Street side, you can see the elevator and stair tower here has considerably reduced in its width. And this is the elevator and that's the stair. And we also dropped that down. Most of this in here has remained unchanged. This is at the property line. I think there was a comment about maybe popping windows in there, but that's on property line with a 2-story building in front of it, so we can't do that here. But we did lower the mass here, and we're able to get more plantings around the corner. This is a section that we had from before, just showing the relationship of our building related to the property line and what's across the street. Again, our building steps back considerably from the sidewalk and from the property line. So we still have quite a bit of step back here. So those are some of those changes that we've made based on the last hearing. I'm going to run through the plans briefly so I can just explain to you how some of that got done. This area here remained fairly unchanged. Sam's landscape drawings start to address some of that. The garage has remained unchanged at this point. This is an area that we did some work on, and over here, as you get to the upper floor, originally we had this unit had a wall here and access along here with a planter. One of these planters was here. So what we did is we flipped this unit and redesigned it, and that allowed us to get a little notch in the back, but also reduce that wall length from this point to that point for our egress. So as long as we're 10 feet off that property line, this works fine. So that reduced this considerably from where it was. Not much has changed up in the front here other than this. We still have our private outdoor living space for the front unit that we had that last time, so that's pretty much the same. Get up to the top. So here we're open all the way down. We're open down to the podium level here and down to the grade here. This unit's the same unit all the way up, and this is the unit that's the one bedroom. Courtney, you weren't here last time, but we redesigned this unit that was out here. We pulled it way back so that we could get a one bedroom unit here and get deck space on the front. So that effectively reduced the mass and height. These are the elevations which we just went through. There was another comment different on park. I think I covered those. I think I've kind of covered these, but there's I wanted to get to the elevations where we had, yeah, so we've already looked at these.
I think the last page shows the
Is
dimensions.
it the last one? We have one where we've provided some dimensions on the, here. So here we've actually added dimensions on how our building is stepping back. Excuse me, I'm having a hard time reading that. Ground floor is about 5'9" off the back of sidewalk or the property line. And then we get to the building adjacent to us is 8'9" back. Our second floor starts back here at 12'2", and then it keeps pulling back to 13 to the canopy, so 13'11" to the eyebrow over the fourth floor, and 19.6. So we're 19.6 now back to there, whereas originally we were only about 8 feet. So we've continually been addressing stepping this back per your comments, and I think, you know, as we're moving back away from the street, I think that's really helping the streetscape, and the addition of this park space, I think, is really great.
It can't be 5 foot 6 inches. 4 foot 6 inches. 13, 11, 14, that's 5, 6, 5, 7.
That doesn't look like it's 5.
If this is 5'9", that can't be 5'7".
Yeah. I'll double check that one. I think that's it on the architectural side. I'll let Sam talk about the landscape plans.
I'll switch up, yeah.
All right.
Thanks, Clay. So again, as a concept landscape, looking at the volume and the vertical space, we can start here on Coda Street. We've got this big planter we talked about. There was discussion about the type of tree that could go in there, an evergreen tree or deciduous tree, what would be good, you know, for light, and what would be good in general to soften the architecture. I've got a list of a few trees that I think are possible. The Tristania is one that I think, as you look at specimens all over town and street trees, they're more delicate, more light, more vertical. I think the openness of that could play nicely in here for some shade, shadow, but not too dense. I also think it's a more vertical form that would work well in here. And then underneath, I've got, because it's on the north side of the building, I've got variegated Scheffler arboricola, maybe some philodendron xanadu, or some grasses that would be fine in the shade, like Illyrio gigantea. I've got some ground cover like an aloe delta lights, which would be kind of something in the shade that would be variegated foliage. And then this is a carex here that kind of starts to mimic what's going on at the French Press. So I wanted to pull that landscape theme kind of down the sidewalk and make these feel in concert with each other. Same thing as the parkway. This is an existing street tree that matches the rest of the Melaleuca quinquenervas, and I felt that the volume of that tree is going to help us, as you know, that how substantial those are, their trunks, but I wanted something a little lighter here, and I'd like to match it, if possible, with that coming up and being pruned around the balcony. So we'd get the volume of two similar continuity canopy trees that would be evergreen underneath here and along here, along the park. We're trying to keep this in grasses and some flowering plants like kangaroo paw and what else do I have? Some carex. I think the grasses here are kind of a match to what we wanted to do in terms of continuity. As we get further down the building, I've added some volume to these plants, going to the Westringia, which is kind of a lighter foliage but has some color. These are some of the pictures. I was going to go through them, but I don't know how much detail you want on the plant material. But this is a wispy and yet has some nice color and is very drought tolerant. That could be the volume along the roadway. In between that, we could do some flowering grass-like material. The kangaroo paw, the anugoxanthus is kind of a nice accent on these pieces of masonry and stucco. So that kind of constitutes the base plane. In the back, as Clay mentioned, we have an open space. I'd like to create that shade tree back here and some pots and benches. So as the residents would come in and store their bikes, they could sit and, you know, fix a flat tire or do some nice things. So this open space is permeable. This is all permeable material out here that would be of a nice grid and certainly would be something that supports the stormwater aspects of what we're going to have to do. On the, any questions on that floor? Any thoughts on that yet? As we go up to the mezzanine level, there's a real good opportunity to do some planting there, and I'll kind of show you the potential of the trees there. There's a kind of a marching of a lighter tree that I like that's called a Leptospermum petersonii. It's actually one that's used at the Music Academy at the front that has a small enough root ball, small enough stature. This is a picture of the front. It's under construction right now in the Music Academy, so this is the front entrance. This is the tree right here. It's pretty much a full-size tree. It's been there many, many years, and I think that tree is, if you look at the volume of that two-story, is up about 18 to 20 feet. And I thought if we played with that in this planter, either on the columns or maybe splitting it to kind of create, you know, this lighter, wispier canopy in this nice planter, we'd get a great feeling of almost a grove up in there. This is the same plant that I showed you below that is the Schifferler arbicola against this about 12-foot wall. That's the backside of the French press. I think that would add some lightness in terms of color. You find that one. That's this plant right here. So that would be down below, and the continuity as you come upstairs against this wall would be something that could be kept almost espaliered if you need, but I think it could also billow out and become part of the feeling of lushness walking down this nice walkway and bridge. We'd also put some grasses, either Astilia or other carex grasses that could be accentuated in front of these windows. I also like this plant called Buchneria that I think we could punctuate with some of the western sun coming in the entries, and I'd like to use them on the other side of these planters up above. It's called, let's see if I can find a picture real quick. Jumped around a little bit. But anyway, I think the aspect of the continuity is what I'm trying to continue throughout. These are some of the grasses. I lost it in the trees. You know that one, Courtney? It's kind of the yucca.
Which one?
The Buchneria.
No.
Let's find a picture, but here it is. It's
Oh,
kind of
yeah.
a real clean, very, it has a very pretty flower, but I'd like to put that here and keep low grasses in here like a lirio, silver dragon, or something else that's low along the path. In the back area where we do have a lot more sun coming in, I think we could kind of get a little grouping of maybe the Cercis forest pansy and grasses underneath that as the sun and south light and west light would hit these. So you've got a little color variation there. And again, trying to tie these plants over to this area for a cleaner, simpler, less busy palette. On the front, I've got that same aloe that I have down here, Delta Lights on the corner, and then the smaller Chondropetalum, which is a grass-like plant that would be very nice up against this wall and these windows. Over here, that same Buchneria that's repeating on this side, plus a Nepetia, which is a low, tough purple flowering ground cover. So I think there's a lot potential going on in these planters with the depth that we're going to be able to have to create a nice on-the-ground experience, almost, if you will, in the scale of
So
these.
raised planter pots on the deck.
It's raised, yeah. 30 inches, 24 to 30 inches, and a little bit of depth.
Trees in there.
You could get trees in there, yeah. So I tried to show that some of these box trees, these wouldn't go there. This could be one of the trees that would be at the ground level to kind of match what's at the street. I think there's enough volume back there. But I think these need to be those smaller trees. This is a picture of the Tristania that you see all over town. That could be this main tree coming up. You see its form is vertical. It's very clean leaf. I think you'd still see through it and see parts of the architecture that are handsome, but yet it would be a nice layer in front of the building on Coda. And again, that tree you saw. And then going up the two other floors, there's planters on the third and fourth floor that would mirror the same thing in these planters. So I'd like to kind of repeat the rhythm up there. I don't think there's enough of a planter to try to make too much of a variety of plant material go on that east elevation. I think if they were all matching that same yucca that I showed you, it would be quite a clean, handsome appearance to the park. There's one more layer that has the exact same thing. That's the top floor. So I think that's overall my thoughts. No planning on the roof.
Not anymore.
I think there was at one point before I got involved. So any questions in terms of those ideas so far? I'll let you wrap up, but I'll be here if you need to.
Thanks.
The only other piece that we had was we brought a color board, our materials board. So just here's so just in terms of materials on the. Can I borrow that?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, thank you. You know, just in terms of this kind of material, we're looking at you know, I don't want it to be a wood product, but probably more of a concrete product that has a styling like that. And where we have railings, we're looking at more of a solid stock as opposed to cable rail. That would be the same for the entry door here and the door on the side of the building that would be here, coming out of the garage. The panels on these sort of planter panels that we have here is this. It's labeled copper, but I was thinking more Corten. I think I just miswrote it, but these here, and then we've got sort of light plaster and some darker plaster areas, and then it's like the steel fascia on the front of the eyebrow there. And then we had a little board form concrete section kind of at the ground floor down here, similar to what we're seeing down the street, just at that one little piece that repeats itself in these little site walls. So that was kind of the material palette that we brought. Again, we're here today requesting project design approval. I just want to speak to a couple points about the project. This is a great location. I've talked to a lot of people about the project, given that it is urban. It's walkable. There's a good chance that A lot of people here living here would use bikes instead of cars, and I think that's all a benefit. It's bringing housing downtown, which is great. The other part is, there's been some concern about impact on the park. Remember, we have a 20-foot roadway here, and then the park, which has pretty heavily vegetated trees and landscaping. If I can see that, please. It is fairly vegetated along the line here, so I think we've got a nice buffer. We've pulled it back. We've got the 20 feet, and then we've got a line of vegetation here. That's pretty extensive. I also think the project has gone through the process well. There hasn't been anybody opposing the project or coming out to speak negatively against it. So for all those reasons, I think this board could make a PDA finding and move it along. So
Okay.
thank you.
Thanks very much. So we'll open up public comment. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to comment on this project? Seeing no one, we go to questions from the board. Kevin?
So in your redesign, can you walk us through a little bit on the tenant entrance, the residential tenant entrance? Now you have what was an eyebrow continuing around, now it comes across, it's got a little thicker, and then it
What sheet are you looking at there, Kevin?
A401. The revised proposed north elevation.
Let's see, this one, right? The top one?
The bottom one. The lower of the two.
So,
So
okay.
you
so
had a thinner eyebrow, and then now it's coming across and turning down.
So one of the things we did with this project early on after our first hearing is we really studied kind of urban mixed-use language that we see in other areas and that we're doing in other areas. One of the things that we like about some of these projects is they make a clear delineation between the pedestrian or the mixed-use commercial and the upper floors. So you'll see that in the previous scheme and in this scheme, we're keeping this sort of more commercial at the ground level, more human scale, and I think that this element that comes across helps reinforce that. And we like the idea of maybe having it be perforated and letting light through and things of that nature as it comes off the building. But really, we're trying to contain that this is the commercial public zone here, and that when you get above that, that's more about residential. And it's very common in a lot of where you have live over work type units, that you'll have an architectural difference between the two.
Sure.
So
Well, my question was more about the difference now. So where you had sort of the plinth essentially coming across, and then now it's, since the plinth is reduced, you've brought that eyebrow across and you've returned it to the
Originally, this was part of the stair tower here,
Okay.
which is not anymore since we pushed it so far back. So in doing that, we were left with this sort of empty spot relative to the park, and we still wanted to shield this entry for the residential units, which is right here where this silhouette is. So the idea was to bring this back and return it down so that we create that this is the entry for that spot. It's just completing that thought.
Okay. And then in the plaster sections, you have these, are these meant to be reveals? These lines are horizontal lines?
Yeah. Just a small reglet.
Just a regular, okay.
Yeah, like a control joint, basically.
Got it. And then so the only section where there's board form concrete is at the ground level. At the
Sort of
front.
right at the ground level. This is all board form on the building adjacent, and as it kind of comes through here, we're just bringing that material along the way, similar to Sam's landscaping concept.
Right. Okay, and then you can't, on the, I guess, the second floor street-facing unit, you can come out front, but not completely across the.
There's a planter here.
Okay.
Because of the plane change. With this pushing back, we now have a planter in front, and then these decks repeat themselves up here.
Does that mean you'd see green coming up above this?
Yes, yeah, that would all be green in there. Yeah.
Kind of shows a little bit more that green comes across.
Okay.
the same material.
Well, whatever Sam feels is appropriate.
Same
yes.
thing, here, just all the way across?
Well, I think I break it, in terms of concept, I break it at the plaster mass and it picks up again and balances. And
That's
it's symmetrical on that form.
Okay. Those are my questions. Okay, thanks, Kevin. Courtney?
I wasn't at the last review, but I did review the tape, so. We're in questions. Never mind. That's good. I was gearing up for comments. Sam, you didn't mention anything about vines, so I was just curious to know what your thoughts were. I'm pretty concerned about the elevation that fronts the park.
Okay.
So what were you thinking on
Well,
that side?
To be honest, I thought the shrubs would do well, but we certainly can study putting vines on the, I guess there's some wires or cables, or I'm not sure. See,
Yeah, on
the
the
disadvantage is I
elevation.
engaged a little bit late, and I'm not sure exactly what the elements are right there. If there's opportunities for there to be vines on those
There is.
structures, then certainly I want to study that.
And that would just be the steel rail, correct?
Yeah, we need an open garage, but for security reasons, we're putting kind of a steel grate there.
Horizontal.
Yeah, it'll mimic the same.
So I was thinking of,
Same
you know,
dimension.
more of a 4, maybe 5-foot wispier shrub in that base area with the columns kind of defined, but then in the corners, we could let some vines go up higher. I don't know how tall are the wires going up, full 8 to 10 feet?
Yeah, they go right up underneath there.
So sure, we could study that.
Okay. And just looking at, can we flip back to the site plan? That space that's at the back on the ground level, I'm just trying to understand what the use is for that. It's always felt like a sideline, sign note to me, so,
This one.
Yeah.
yeah. So what is the purpose of that space? You know, what is it, how do you access it as a resident of this project?
So if you go back, originally, we were doing a roof deck for our common outdoor living. So we've gone to the other method, which requires 10% of the ground plane to be open. So this helps satisfy that. In an earlier design, we had this mast turned this way, and then we had the open space back in the corner, which was sort of somewhat unusable. And I believe you and Mr. Witosh made comments to maximize the ground floor experience as much as possible. So what we did is we rotated that mass so that we could effectively reduce the impacts to the south, and that gave us this open space. And it's accessed along this way to get to these. This is mostly mechanical utility, so that won't be accessed quite often. But
Bike storage. and-
our bike locker room is here, and then on the upper floors we've got storage and laundry area and the stairs.
So people accessing the mechanical room and storing a bike would be using that space?
Yeah, or using this if they want to just go out there and read a book, I guess. I mean, it could be used many different ways. We've got a
How-
two-story building here, we've got a building here, and this is mostly open at this point, so.
How tall is the building behind?
This is two-story. I
No.
think this is like a 1.5 story, maybe 10, maybe 12 feet, something like that.
And the wall that connects, or that,
This,
yeah,
we probably do, probably just the top of our podium, so that's probably at about 10 feet, 10 or 11 feet,
yeah, okay.
right around there.
At the last review, you kind of presented that area as a space where you could include some canopy trees or skyline trees or, you know, some additional height in the landscape. Is there a reason that that wasn't the approach here?
No, I think that's the intent, is that tree could be a
The one
tall
tree.
canopy tree that would get up above the building or as high as we choose the tree. So there's
And
room
that's
to do
proposed
that
to
in
be
the
a
corner.
Tristania as well?
Or it
or
could be a
something else.
Melaleuca. It could be a jacaranda, it could be a sycamore. I mean, there's all those possibilities for a larger canopy tree for that area to create a shade space or an overhead, natural overhead plane back there. So it's drawn as a match to the Tristania, but it certainly doesn't have to be. It can be its own thing because it's in the ground back there.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Courtney. Howard?
Questions, right?
Yes.
Okay. So what is actually happening here? Wood boards?
It'd be the same material wrapped around the stair towers. So
This material, but it's like just in a recess.
yeah, we're able to cut that back a little bit when we altered the floor plan just to give a little relief in that mass. We pulled that forward a little bit.
There's no way to make some little openings in there.
I can't make openings. Sorry, I can't make openings here because of the proximity to the property line. I could do them here, but we don't have really a lot of space to make that work.
I see. Yeah, I don't have any more questions.
Okay, thanks, Eric. So could you clarify what that setback of that third floor mass is? It seemed like it was incorrect on the one sectional dimension drawing that you have, but I'm sure it's correct
Do you
somewhere.
have a scale laying around?
The architectural scale, huh? Mr. Ramon, thank you.
Thank you.
And also the overhang there.
Where am I? I need to go up. So the deck is set back just under 12 feet. It looks like 11.9 based on scale to this line. And that only comes up to just railing height.
Mm-hmm.
And then the building is set back 18.6.
So I think that's where the problem was. There, it was shown as 19.6 in that section.
That was to the stair tower.
That was to the stair
Oh,
tower, which
oh.
is actually set back further.
Oh, okay,
Stair tower is back 19.6.
okay,
So this is not in the same plane.
yeah. And then the overhang is,
We reduced it, it was about 6 feet, 6 or 7 feet before, right now it's 4.5 feet. So
Thank you.
from the property line, it's 14 feet.
okay,
That's 14 feet here. And then we also cut it back. It was out here and that's been reduced as well.
yep, all right. And then, I don't know, maybe this is just misdrawn or something, but the window slot is like that, right?
Yeah,
Should be all
no,
set.
that should be gone, sorry.
And then
The window right here.
it also looks like this surface is the same as that surface. So
Yeah, I think what's going on is I got a little drafting booger here. It should be like this,
yeah,
and then that's doing that.
okay.
Just like that.
And on the, this is a landscaping question. I'm sorry if I missed it.
Landscaping plan?
Landscaping, yeah. So on the elevation, it looks like these,
Oh, the east elevation?
east elevation,
Okay.
these coverings, and this would be the same railing material that you're using elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Is the intent that this would eventually just be covered with green?
The intent is to be very dense planted with some flowering shrubs and potentially vines, if we can use those rails, cables to play with some vines on.
And then the reason, this is architectural, then the reason you're adding this is just to keep continuity with what's up above?
Mm-hmm. We've got a planter on each level here, and
Oh, I
then there's a
see.
ground floor planter that would then kind of cover that up.
Okay.
So this is at the first level, podium level unit,
Mhm.
and then it repeats as it goes up.
Okay. All right. I think those are my only questions. All right, so we'll go to comments. Kevin, are you ready?
I appreciate the effort to reduce the mass of the building on the street. I think it's successful to pull that stair and elevator tower back as far as you have, and to get that landscape element in there. I appreciate that. And as well on the southern elevation, I appreciate the reduced overall mass that you guys have been able to come up with. I'm a little conflicted on the street elevation still, though. There's a lot going on. It seems really, frenetic. There's, a lot of different elements, materials. Maybe there's a way to simplify the overall partie, I guess, or the overall effort of that elevation. I can't quite pinpoint what it is, but to me it's more evident on the 3D images. So on page number 2 of the current version, this view is less successful than page number 1, that angle for some reason. I don't mind. Like, that seems successful, but then from the other angle, there's something about it that perhaps it's the corner. Yes, that corner, especially in the residential area, there's a lot of step backs and moves going on there. Perhaps if that was more simplified.
If I could just interject one question, is this surface flush with that?
No.
No. This one is set back?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's a lot of ins and outs and stepping backs. Perhaps that's an area that could be simplified and would help to simplify the overall appearance. I like the park elevation. I think that's successful, especially if we can get some more greenery growing up the plinth. I think that would be helpful and really help to soften the impact to the park. So again, I'm struggling with the image, the perspective image on page number 2.
Okay.
Those are my comments.
Thanks. Courtney.
I think this project has come a long way. In reviewing the current drawings versus what was brought forward at the last review, I'm very happy with the changes that are made to the stair and elevator tower at the front. And, I'm pleased to see this setback. It's more apparent in this view versus the old version where this was proud of the building. So I very much appreciate that. I think, giving us a healthier space for landscaping there is much better. That'll help the feel of the streetscape a lot in that area. I didn't get to ask, I had a question about the site walls that you're proposing in that area. And it might just be a function of how this was rendered, but it looks like there's a site wall here that just sort of ends and doesn't return back to the building. Is that intentional or? Yeah, so what is the purpose of that wall?
I think on the site plan real quick. It's on the site plan. So what we're doing is just trying to create a little break here, and then there's one here. Wait,
So does that actually extend into the?
No, it's stopping here. I don't know what that little piece is. This one kind of comes back like that.
So it doesn't serve as a raised planter wall or retain at all? It's just decorative?
It's just bordering the planter from there. That's all.
Okay. I think it's a little awkward when you view it from this side because now all of this is kind of sunk down behind it. I understand the intent is to provide some continuity with the building next door, but I know this is the old version, but I actually think this could use something in front of it, and don't think that having, the site wall right behind the sidewalk is something we want to see. So I would suggest studying that. It's a minor detail. What else? I'm pleased to know that this is not board form all the way up, which is what I thought when I looked at it the first time. So
No, it's
that's great. And then on the park, can we pull this back up?
Yep.
On the park elevation, regarding the planting, I'm a little torn here. We've got a pretty small planter, and so there's only so much you can do in getting height out of the plant material there. But this is a 4-story building, so anything you can do to help kind of ground it and help it be softened a little bit on that side would be appreciated.
When you say grounded, what do you mean?
Larger plant
More
material.
plant volume, if we can get.
For example, he has a Nigaxanthus plant here. The flowers can get up to 3 or 4 feet in height, but the foliage itself is kind
Stays
of
fairly
lacking.
low, 2 feet.
So, things like that would be appreciated if you could take a look at that.
Do know that there's some aloe in the palette of the park, and we could even get some climbing aloe to work itself up the building
Great.
side, which would kind of be a balancing and a match to what's going on along that access alley road, which could be nice.
Okay. I think in general, I'm not sure whether you designed the building next door, the landscape there, but I would encourage you to kind of
playing off that.
play with that and maintain its kind of contemporary nature, which I think you have.
I think that's the intention, yes.
And then regarding the tree species, it's kind of a funny condition out here. You've got three different conditions. So, the inclination is to put something larger here, but then you've got potentially three different species going on. So, I think what you have proposed is acceptable. I would like to see larger than 24-inch box tree here.
Well, I hope to put in something
So,
big, much bigger, because that planter can take it.
Great. The other thing I would note is your plant list appears to be mostly medium water use, so you might want to take a look at that. And regarding the space at the back, I think it is what it is. It's. I don't think it's ideal. I don't think it'll get used very much at all. So I think if you could get another tree in there, that would be nice. But at the same time, we want it to be functional as well. So too much
Certainly
shade could be a
larger
problem. But I did like Clay's representation at the last review that is an opportunity for a skyline tree, considering this is a 4-story building. That's it. I think I'd reiterate Clay's comment about the fact that this is in an excellent area for this type of project. Immediately adjacent to a bus stop, right across
We
the
actually
street
have
from
to put one
Farmers
in.
Market. What's that?
We actually have to put one in.
Oh, it's new. I
We're
thought it was
putting in-
existing.
There is one there, but we have to redo it.
Okay.
Even more ideal.
So the point is that it's ideally located, and I think that's important to note.
Okay, thanks, Courtney. Howard.
Okay. Well, I agree with the comments that the others have made, and really want to compliment the applicant, architect, for his persistence in refining these details and these studies. They're very subtle, and they make a big difference. I do have a couple of very small comments, and they have to do with a couple of the vertical elements in the building. Let's see, where's right here. This right here.
Can you take my
Every time you try to look at it, it
Yeah,
gets
right.
taken away.
Thanks. Another one. I know.
So with respect to this rhythm of forms here, and then this vertical element here, it seems that it would be better if this return, this canopy return, allowed this element to go to the ground. Also, the skinniness of this piece here and the skinniness of these floors is really not, it seems weak. It seems like this really wants to be a mass that is perforated by smaller openings. And so if you would, like this is appropriate up here.
Mm-hmm.
If these were of that nature, and if this one was of that of the same dimension, it would become more of a wall, you know, a tower with small openings. And you could wiggle them around so they didn't line up, so that the bedroom, each bedroom had a slightly different view. I also think the same comment applies to this stair tower here, in which you have a skinny wall with skinny floors connecting. It would be better if those things, that was a tower element, solid with perforated by smaller openings. And that's in the distance.
Yeah, but I've been focusing on the same thing, just to start a little dialogue here that you have, Howard, so I just want to put in a little 2 cents here, you know. So here, he's got a bigger corner element as
Right.
opposed to this
Yes.
1 foot dimension. And this the way this composition seems to work pretty well. Are you suggesting that something like that would be okay here?
I'm suggesting that
Or-
he connect the openings so that it's more of a tower. I would do the same thing. I'd connect this, but he's got a nice little eyebrow coming out like this here. which
Okay.
I did. Also, if you're going to do these eyebrows, I'd interlock that with the tower.
Connect so that the siding would, instead of open railing in there, just be siding going across at the
Yeah.
at the floor levels.
Of a dimension of
Yeah.
this kind,
Yeah.
rather than,
Because what you're seeing here is actually the landing of the stair, if you will,
Right,
right,
kind of
right.
as you're coming down.
Yeah.
So I can't get over here, because then I'm in this, I don't want to be in the
Yeah,
stair.
so but he's not
proper, so-
he's not suggesting, you understand what he's
Yeah,
saying?
yeah,
though?
yeah, he's
Okay.
saying make that wider,
Well,
and also,
he's saying
in between.
connect, yeah.
so think of it as more of a solid shaft rather than a
Long vertical.
shaft with a piece of paper on it. No,
Okay.
skinny, it's too
I'll
skinny.
think about that one.
Yeah, that's good. Anyway, same thing here with these, like, make these solid elements and try to, and study them. Yeah, those are my only comments. I think the building is really starting to get there. I think these are big improvements here. You have the same thing going here. This is basically is this plaster?
Yeah.
Plaster tower, plaster tower, plaster tower. And you start getting these plinths going around the building. It makes gives it some gravitas.
Well, I'll just tack on to that.
That's all I have to say.
Thanks, Howard. I've been focusing on that element and this more so than this. Somehow, to me, the thinness of this little wall with this kind of siding looks okay, and I do like Howard's suggestion, perhaps, of connecting those. This doesn't really become an issue for me because we've got that big planter and the tree in front of it. And this view is a very nice view because it's broken. The building's broken by the building in front. But as Kevin was saying, you know, once you come around the corner, this elevation is still troubling me a bit. But I will say that the moves you made since last time are very helpful, and that we're on your side in the sense that we would really love for this to be a beautiful contemporary building in this, very important location. And so my comments are more about refinements as well as the other previous comments that you've heard. But I think I've resolved myself now that the size of that upstairs unit, the way you've pulled things back, modified the roof line and so on, that it is sufficiently recessed from the street that it's not going to be imposing to the street. So I think that was my main my main issue, my main concern. I was really feeling like, gosh, that one unit up there, if that was gone, that would just make this building acceptable. Acceptable in terms of, you know, how it's impacting the park, acceptable from the street level. It would not be an imposing building at the street. And then you have a great building. So I've kind of been going back and forth in my own mind about that. And I still feel like that, you know, if that was gone, that this would just be very acceptable. I could just say, yep, you know, it's not a problem. But this is the area that to me I'm really struggling with, because it still looks like it's forced. It makes it a very, you know, prominent building at the street, and in relation to other buildings in the area, and in relation to the park, and the fact that we've got all this, you know, one-story bungalow on the other side of the block, and so on.
What about Anacoda Building?
That's right.
It's right out on the street.
Yeah, but it's not this big. It's not this big. Yeah, we saw your section. We looked at the section. I was looking very carefully at that. So I am taking that into consideration. But so I'm just letting you know I'm still on the fence about that. And I agree with Kevin and Howard that this is still, it's not really working. And I don't know what the answer is, and I'm not going to try to design it for you. I've been thinking about, you know, trying to come up with this very clever solution, how to make it work, and I don't know what it is. But I do think one of the things that visually make it problematic for me on this elevation is that this is the same height as these. So yes, this is different, but, you know, as Howard was pointing out, this is kind of weak in the fact that it doesn't have the bold forms that everything else is following. It's got these thin forms, and the roof height is the same. So there's just it's more like tweaking. It looks like you tweaked this, but it's not enough of a difference to make it feel like it's, you know, this is your statement about, you know, this is a gorgeous building. This is it right here, and the front, and doesn't have that. You know, part of the problem is you've been working on it so much, right? You had a very clean concept to start with, bold, clean, but there was problems with it.
We like that one, by the way.
Yeah.
We can bring it back.
And you're cutting it back and cutting it back and cutting it back, and now it looks like it's been chiseled away. Again, you know, like, and I sound like a broken record. If that was gone, you could do something very bold with the stories that are left here and have it just be a beautiful, magnificent part of the building, instead of this kind of chiseled away corner that's doing all these, you know, different things. So that's where I'm at. Where do we go from here?
If you think by working on this more and more that you're coming closer to a solution, that's you're wrong.
You're wrong.
No, I wouldn't go that far. But
we've been addressing
so
comments.
here's the other thing.
It's good chiseling.
This is more.
The chiseling.
The other thing I've been.
Piece of sculpture.
It is. Or it could be. It could be a really beautiful piece of sculpture. The relationship, you talked about, you know, using the board form planter to kind of pick up a relationship between these two buildings. And I think one of the really strong elements about this building is that you have these big plaster masses, and then you have, you know, this definite start and stop for where the more contemporary metal goes on. And you've got a little bit of that picking up here. And again, I don't want to redesign this for you, tell you how to do it, but it seems to me that if this lower floor picked up those white, broad plaster masses somehow, that would help draw these two together and put that lower floor as really, in front, as opposed to trying to make it recess also with the bigger building behind. And I wonder if maybe this one way to do it is to make this pedestrian entrance a little bit taller, more closer to the height of this, and give it kind of its own definition to distinguish it from the garage and the commercial that's going on next to it. And I would be acceptable to me if that meant, encroaching on that planter a little bit in order to get some element like that. I think that would help break up this, low plinth and then the big building behind kind of dialogue that you've got going on now. If you had one taller element that kind of picked that up at the street. So let's take a straw vote. How many board members feel like the direction that the building is going, that we could relieve the applicant from having to go to Planning Commission? Okay, there you go. So I think, I know we need to make a motion. I guess I'll try to summarize the comments.
Is this a comments or a motion?
We need to make a motion, yes.
Comments only.
No,
Requires environmental assessment.
no, that it is, you can make an approval action, or you can continue it for more refinements. Kirk, Mr. Chair, I do want to make it understood the extent of changes, if you could do that in your motion, because I heard still some reluctance to cut massing from, that would be the solution. Others were more chiseling. So the question is to give good direction as to what it would take to get an approval.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how other board members feel, so my own position is that I still feel like that upper floor could work if the other issues that were discussed that are problematic about that front and side street elevation were resolved. So I guess we could state it that way in the motion if board members are okay with that. Yeah?
So you're the only one that has a trouble with the top unit on that corner. Is that right?
Well, I don't know. To me, it seems like it's integral to the design of the front, and that in an effort to try and make that massing work, that it's created other issues with the front. But I don't know how other board members see it.
Well,
We could take a straw vote. Why don't we just take a simple straw vote that how many board members are okay with the fourth floor unit closest to the street remaining as designed?
Well, hold on, we've in discussion on that point. I'm okay with there being a unit up there, but my issue is more of the architectural handling of that.
Okay.
So
I think
chiseling.
I think what we could say is that majority of the board is in favor of the third floor unit or fourth floor unit closest to Coda Street remaining, as long as the architectural issues can be resolved.
That's fair.
But these elements that could be resolved between concept and preliminary?
That's another question. I think we haven't decided that. If my own view would be that I would not be interested myself in making a motion for preliminary approval or concept approval, but other board members might be.
You mean project design approval?
Project design approval, thank you, yeah. How many board members feel like it's ready for project design approval? Okay, so there you go. And then, so then to try to summarize the comments,
I'd like you to be specific because we've redesigned that corner several times based on your comments, and we keep coming around back to a circle. So if we can be specific, that would be helpful because I personally like the old design, and here we are now trying to get to where we address the comments that were from the last hearing. But, you know, if we can be specific, and I know you were specific about some of these things, but as long as they're captured.
right. Well,
Inconsistent.
yeah. I think the problem is, you know, we can't design it for you. So I can be specific about the problem areas, but I can't tell you what the solutions are.
I agree.
I think we could try and summarize by saying the board still finds certain areas of the architectural design problematic. Mainly, those have to do with, in fact, exclusively, almost exclusively, those have to do with the Coda Street elevation and that elevation as it turns the corner towards the east.
You need me to take the word problematic out?
How would you like to
I'm just
rephrase that
saying-
for me?
I'm just saying, like, study the elevation. I mean, saying problematic is a negative connotation.
I think we need to make our motion.
Suggestions were made to provide architectural elements at the first floor that help to tie it to the adjacent building. To restudy the manner in which the vertical slot openings in the stair tower and at the northeast corner are designed.
Entrance.
To provide a way of demarcating or distinguishing the residential entrance from the commercial and garage area entrance areas. To study ways to simplify and make more consonant with the boldness, to restudy the northeast corner elevation as it faces the park, to be more consonant with the simplicity and boldness of the rest of the design.
On the facing the park.
Well, the rest, I think that applies.
Oh, I see, okay.
You know, applies to
Fine.
this as well.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
can you clarify what that means? I don't know.
Well, yeah, we had.
Is it
you
just
know,
related to that corner still, or are you talking about the entire elevation?
I'm talking about this
Okay.
right here. You know, I mean, there were suggestions about how to, changes that could be made in different ways here to, but I think Kevin Howard and I all feel like this, there's still some work that needs to be done to make this be different from this, but also have that same kind of boldness of form.
Okay.
That the rest has.
I was just trying to get some more clarity for the comments.
Yep.
So that's pretty good. I mean,
Yeah.
did you, in a nutshell, you want the entrance, the pedestrian entrance to the building to be more emphasized?
I did make that
I
comment,
think
yes.
that's,
what I got.
that's one. And I think then the other two, these plinth, these towers that have these skinny slotted openings in them that make those more massive.
Well,
I'd like to add one more thing. In the back where you have that recessed channel that is full of boards, wooden boards, mentioned about openings, and you said that it's within 3 feet of the property line, can't do that. You could use an interesting glass block infill on the wall there, that would be a way of getting light and still complying with the fire resistive requirement. And it would be a great way to kind of excuse to use the slot for some other purpose than just to push the wall in. Suggestion.
Okay. How about your landscaping comments? We do want to incorporate those.
Yeah.
Sure. Are you done?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is Howard's motion, by the way.
Ms. Howard's, okay.
Okay, thanks.
Applicant to provide larger plantings along the eastern elevation, as well as vines to grow up onto the building. I'm going to carry forward the comment from 2 meetings ago regarding the implementation of significant trees at the Coda Street elevation, so that's just related to the size. So provide trees that are larger than 24-inch box within the northern elevation. Study the design of the low site walls on the north elevation in relationship to the planter areas. I think that's all I had.
Something about this tree. I know they're going to make it big, but
I
we should
said
try.
larger than 24.
about
Oh, you did?
So-
I missed that. I was
Volume
thinking.
in terms of size.
All right.
Canopy tree in the back,
Yeah.
potentially larger skyline in
Yeah.
that open space.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a motion, indefinite continuance back to full board, obviously. Motion by Howard,
We have
seconded.
2 weeks? We can get 2 weeks?
Well, Jaime was just saying it's packed, agenda's packed.
Is it full already?
I can verify.
I know you can't guarantee,
if-
but-
I can't guarantee it, but if there's room, we will place you. There's been another request made earlier in the evening.
I understand.
We're
If
gonna
there's,
prioritize.
if 2 weeks isn't available, then we'll take the 4.
Can we also add to the motion that we very much appreciate the applicant's willingness to work with us and their the efforts they made since the last meeting to respond to our comments. So that's a motion by Howard, seconded by Courtney.
Sure.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
4-0?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thanks for all your good comments.
We'll make sure we get a copy. Item number 4, 133 South Salina Street.
My set and then.
This is a continued item, second concept review. Action may be taken if sufficient information is provided. It's a proposal for a 672 square foot, one-story addition to an existing 1,122 square foot, one-story, single-family dwelling with a detached two-story garage on an 8,134 square foot parcel. There's also a attached office building of about 500 square feet and 2 uncovered parking spaces. 33 cubic yards of grading and addressing zoning violations. And we're just waiting for the drawings to arrive. your names for the record, please.
Okay, Gilbert Garcia, architect, and Julio Lopez, the owner.
Lopez.
Nice to meet you.
Chuck McClure, landscape architect.
Now, all of you weren't here for the first, I guess none of you were here for the first go-around on this project, if I recall. But we did have on this project kind of a concept approval on it, but with more detail. And so we're coming back, responding to the comments and providing more detail. And one of the requests was a landscape plan.
Gil, I'm just going to shift the drawings a little bit.
Yes.
Show the photos first.
Better for the camera.
Okay.
Do board members need to see the photos? I think we're okay.
Okay. And it's,
So we do have minutes from last time. Why don't we get those? That's part of what you're doing is addressing comments from last time.
addressing comments and adding more detail, because we went with a very rough concept.
Okay.
And now we're adding the approved the concept, we're responding to comments, and providing more detail.
You want to see the minutes?
May take a minute or two. Once you go ahead with your
We'll go ahead,
presentation.
while
we'll
you're
come
looking for the
back to it.
minutes, I can go over the project. The project really is a little office building here at the street level. Right across is that commercial building, sort of has a similar low line to it. And then its grade drops quite a bit, so it's quite a bit lower. And this is a residence, and we're adding to the residence 2 bedrooms. Existing garage, we're adding handicap and 2 parking for the office building. We're providing a plaza entrance in the corner here, so that you get to the lower level, providing handicap and a ramp that comes down like this. It meets grade here, comes here, so the handicap path of travel. We have a courtyard here, existing courtyard here, existing barbecue here, and some existing landscaping here, and Chuck will go over the landscaping in a minute. So this is just the section showing the different square footages of the office, and here at this location, the house, and this is kind of the basement of the house, actually. I mean, the lower area of the house. And we have here at the first floor the office building, 2 offices, handicap bathroom, and we have the section which was requested through the building. The roof of this building is going to be a deck off the living room. So, and the height is just such that we have to go up a little bit higher, but it pretty much makes it as a deck, just 1 step up to it. We get to that deck. Here's the floor plan. The entrance right now is here. We're changing the entrance to here, and the entrance will be here, and to the portion here will be, let's see, this comes up.
Looks like you're going down here and down there.
Right.
Yeah.
This is the roof deck?
Actually, we're actually coming.
It's on grade.
This is the roof deck. This isn't quite right here. This is all the roof deck here to this building.
So
This is-
these
so this
stairs
is the
shouldn't be
roof
here
deck, So
then?
that shouldn't be there. Okay. They should come up and just step up and do it here. This is all part of the roof deck.
Okay.
And so you see from the Salinas elevation, we have a nice little elevator that's on the picture. Well, we're trying to keep a lot of the wall, existing wall around on Salinas and the corner property here. What's in this street? Eucalipto Street. Eucalipto Street. And we're cutting out for it for the patio, entrance patio. Like I said, this is just a deck. The building sort of matches the one across the street. You come around the adjoining street, and there's an entrance here, and the deck on top, and the building behind it. And the rear of the lot. So I think that's pretty much it. And
So let me just read the comments from last time.
yes.
And this was January 4th. In general, the board found the proposed project design acceptable and modest in scale. All details should be consistent and convey continuity with the existing structure. Number 2, provide a longitudinal section through Salinas Street, the house, and the addition so the board can understand how the residential and office space come together. We saw that, right?
Saw that, yeah.
Number 3, all proposed windows and doors should match existing and each other. Number 4, provide a landscape plan. 5, provide deck and roof plans. 6, restudy the relationship of the columns supporting the trellis at the house and the top of the wall at the office space.
This had to do, we had the plaster coming on up, and they
Yeah.
requested that we just go through.
Yes. Okay, so landscape plan?
Landscape.
Deck and roof plans.
Well, unfortunately, I don't. You're talking about the roof plan of the building? The house has an existing roof plan, but this is your deck plan here.
Okay, but it's so this goes like that, and this is not
Right,
there?
Right.
Okay,
It's not there, and this is all the deck.
okay.
This is out here.
That's how,
Mhm,
yeah.
yeah.
That was the existing house there.
Okay.
Wasn't taken off.
So you come up to this and you're on the deck.
Right. Now you're one step up to the deck here, and then you're on the deck. One step. Right. That's it.
Up or down?
Up. It's shown in the section here. Very small step.
All right. Okay, so let's go to landscape then.
Landscape plan, all right.
There's opportunities for new street trees on both sides. We get 4 new street trees. And then it's just a simple, tough, attractive landscape. Drought tolerant.
Okay. Agaves, Raphiolepis, Chromium.
Where are you using the gravel? Oh, in the back.
Yeah, behind the garage, we don't really see the point in doing a lot of ornamental stuff there. Just kind of,
Storage, actually.
yeah, utility or.
So this is parking?
That's the garage.
That's the garage.
Right. Existing garage.
What's the Peruvian ice cream tree?
Yeah, that's, maybe the owner would like to expand on that. It's a Peruvian tree that he,
Yeah, it's a baby.
brought from
Never heard of it.
It's a fruit, it's a sweet, it's a little cotton. It's a favorite fruit in Peruvian. Over there, it's famous over
You
there.
make ice cream out of it?
Yeah.
I think I've had that.
Yeah, it's really sweet.
Yeah.
Do we require a sample, please?
Yeah, bring seeds next time.
Yeah.
You appear, please.
Yeah, right now have the product, have a seed also to decide to plant.
Yeah.
It's sweet, it's a nice fruit.
It grows well in this environment.
Yeah, and all the market you see is favorite because it's sweet and a little cotton is nice flavor also.
Nice.
Magic word.
So that brings the uniqueness to the project, which is, I think, great.
What is this paving here?
It'll be asphalt paving.
Existing,
Yes.
stays?
No, we're actually going to probably re-patch it and grade it a little bit because we got to get this, this little piece will need to be level. So we'll get this level in through here.
Pathways, stone pathways in there?
Stone, this is the fireplace, kind of a barbecue area here, the deck. It's got a little chimney on it. And then this is the path of travel, stone path of travel. And this is existing pathway right now. You enter this way, you enter towards the back. Existing pathway from the garage.
So you had to route your accessible pathway all the way around this way to get in?
Yes, actually
You
because,
can't come down the sidewalk or?
well, we had to come behind the cars. We can't do that. We had one of them that wasn't very, was the only problem that I saw. We had it coming down this way, but it was too steep. But then we found that this location was the ideal. Comes just without any 8% ramp, just a 5% ramp.
no handrails, no curbs.
Real no curbs, yeah.
Okay, so we'll open up public comment. Does anyone like to comment on this project? Seeing no one, we'll go to questions. Amy?
I don't think I have any questions.
Okay, Kevin?
No questions.
Courtney?
What's happening here?
That's
It's a paved area, go ahead.
Yeah, that's,
There's some
probably see
stairs
it
and-
best in the very first floor plan. It's also a paved area. All this is existing stone, so we're just taking this stone and putting it here, here. Flagstone.
And there's planting in front? On the
That's a
side,
stone
okay.
wall.
Stone wall.
Oh, that's just the wall.
This is a
Okay.
stone wall, you saw it on the maps. This is an existing stone wall that goes all the way around here.
Hard to see. I don't have any other questions.
Okay. Howard?
So at the end of the day, what you have is a 1,700 plus square foot, single-family residence and an office.
Mhm.
Parking for the residents, parking for the office.
Right.
And how many bedrooms? All done?
4 bedrooms. Right now have two, so we're adding 2.
Adding 2. Okay. I don't have any questions.
Okay. I don't have any questions either. So we'll go to comments. Amy? This project, if you think it's ready for project design approval, we could add that into your comments.
Okay. Yeah, I think overall, the project is acceptable. I think it's ready for project design approval. The one comment I do have is on the entry into the, if you go to the elevation sheet on A4. This is just a comment, but the opening into the entry that there on the, let's see, number 2, on the southeast elevation. So the glazing, it might be nice to have divided, like French divided lights, just to sort of go with the rest of the style of the house. And this is just a comment, I'm okay with it being this, but like this style, even just the 3, might be nice to sort of tie it all together, because I think that, especially like on the front elevation, it's successful, sort of melding the
These two go
commercial
together,
with
but then
the,
this changes something different there.
the commercial with the residential, and so maybe on that elevation, tying it back into. But other than that, I think it looks good.
Okay, thanks. Kevin?
I'll agree with Amy's comments. I think it's ready to move on.
Okay. Courtney?
I think the landscaping looks nice. I appreciate the new trees. And otherwise, I don't have any comments. I think it's a nice project.
Okay, thanks. Howard?
I agree with the comments. Just clarifying here, so the roof is shingle roof? Wood or shake or
Shingle,
asphalt?
asphalt,
Asphalt shingle roof.
right.
And the stone cap here, brick cap?
Tile. Tile
cap.
cap.
Tile such as ceramic tile?
No flat tile, like a red, like a. just
Red
to give it a-
terracotta tile,
Yeah,
paving
that
tile?
kind of, yeah, we thought that sort of thick, but we thought it'd match a little bit across the street where you have this kind of linear line, but it has a full-on tile,
Can we say terracotta
terracotta,
tile capped
right.
wall? And the deck itself is terracotta?
Yes, terracotta tile.
I agree with the comments about matching the fenestration. In particular, in this one here, where you have these horizontal proportions, it doesn't look right. Southwest elevation, I would make those the same as these
Okay.
other ones. I think it's ready for PDA approval, those comments.
Okay. Do you want to make that motion then?
Yes, I just made the motion.
So it's an indefinite continuance to the full board or consent?
I would be okay with consent. I'll be on consent, so.
With comments that for the doors shown on the southeast elevation to match the fenestration breakups on the existing house? Or be closer to?
Yeah. I'll just mention that we thought you would catch that. Our thought was, since it was well recessed, we wanted the patio to look like it was going right through the front patio. That's what's kind of what it was, but I thought it was a little maybe out of the.
Okay.
Fenestration, too.
What was your issue about the fenestration?
Windows, all these windows should look like they belong to the same house. I mean, I think this is the wrong proportion. I think you've got other windows
Howard,
shown here.
the windows that you're pointing to are existing.
Which ones?
The windows that you're pointing to
that's
are
existing.
existing.
That's an existing
Those are
window.
existing.
They're not going to change those?
I mean,
No.
I don't think that we're asking them to
That's-
change
I
existing
see.
windows.
No.
I think it,
So I
I
would
think it
think
actually
should just
works
be
well.
more in keeping with the window arrangement that you've got going for the new
Yeah.
construction.
I think it works well with the commercial and the residential.
Yeah. So this is not a project about replacing wholesale replacement of all the windows. This is just about making the new windows comply. Okay. And relate to each other.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm good with that. That's fine.
Okay. And landscape plans acceptable as designed? Okay, so I guess that's the motion. All in favor, need a first and a second.
I'll second.
So that was Howard and Amy, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Oh, yes, we need to add in the CEQA findings, that the architectural board finds that the project qualifies for an exemption from further environmental review under CEQA guidelines section 15183, based on the city staff analysis and the CEQA certificate of determination on file for this project. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Safely.
Yeah, bring those things to the consent meeting. will you?
One for each of us. So that's a joke, by the way. It's not a requirement. Item number 5, 600 block North La Cumbre Road, and that'll be followed by 400 block of North Cañada Road, I believe,
It's not,
which is not on our agenda, but got pushed up from the consent calendar.
We have a-
He's going to excuse himself.
Okay, this is a comment. All right, thanks.
First,
Presenting the project?
No, I'm
okay.
here to find out about it. I
Okay.
live right across the street. Can you tell me if this is the right poll number?
I cannot. I do not know. I cannot.
Wait for the presentation, sir. Sir, have a seat.
Oh, I have to wait till he's done first?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll call you up.
sure. We can share. Yeah,
Sure.
thanks.
Hi.
Hi, good afternoon.
Afternoon. Your name for the record, please.
I'm Pete Shubin with Sequoia Deployment Services, representing Verizon Wireless. I'm the representative for this project. I'm here to answer questions, present to you.
So, can you show us what you're proposing and where
Sure
it's
can.
going?
Would you like to start with the photosims, or would you like to start with the plans?
Let's do those things.
Photosims? Okay.
There's a utility pole in the north corner, right adjacent to the property line, next to a driveway to the property to the north, in the parkway in front of a residence.
What's this street here?
That is La Cumbre Road.
Okay, and where are we here? This 600 block?
Where's State Street?
620, right in front of 620.
Okay,
State Street's down here.
right, thank you.
So this residence has a fence, they've fenced in their front yard, and that will show up as we look at the photosims and it's landscaped in the front. The sidewalk at this location is all the way back of curb 6 feet and then 4 feet of landscaping in the front of the properties. That is the public right-of-way. Equipment, except for the meter, is located on the pole. When we look at these different views, you'll see it. It's all mounted to the south side of the pole, which is the landscape side. There's some trees there. It's a little dark in that photo. It shows better than the other ones. So this is looking up. You can see the existing trees screen the equipment, and the antenna on the pole is just near the top of the trees in this view.
The proposed antenna.
Yes, sir. These are all simulations of what the project would look like, the existing views down here.
Yeah.
Then looking across the street, everything proposed to be painted brown on the street side. So if you're coming down the street, it would be behind. If you're coming up the streets, the trees would be intercept the view, and when you look straight across, you'd see it next to the trees. And
It's
the
very
meter-
hard to see what the equipment is.
Yeah, we could look at the plans.
Is this the same pole or is this a different pole?
This is the same pole,
Different
three
view.
different views. We have the different views going here. It just came up the street, across the street, and then down the street.
Okay, let's look at the
Okay.
drawings then.
Let's go sheet by sheet. Just land survey of the area showing the street, sidewalk, back of right-of-way. We had that surveyed to locate the pole in relationship to the private property lines. Right here you can see where the pole is with the equipment hanging off the south side, the meter pedestal inside the public right-of-way. This is landscaped in this area right here. And it would be adjacent to the pole, all other equipment on the pole. This right here is the adjacent property. It has a block wall in the front yard. This is their driveway. And then it goes in for, it looks like RV parking along the side right here. This is a wall, short wall.
How high?
If you look at the pictures and count the courses, probably about 24 inches, 30 inches
Okay.
at the most.
All right,
This wall here? Is this the one you're talking about?
this one. It's about the same height, yeah.
Yeah,
It's like around 4 or 5 courses,
okay,
40 inches maybe.
3.5 feet. Looking down on it, meter pedestal next to the pole. This is all the equipment on the pole swung to the south side to use the trees as the screening with the antenna, and then everything vertically stacked down below will show up on the elevation.
What's the scale here?
3/4 inch. Goes 1 foot.
So this is a 12-inch diameter, something like that?
It's, the pole tapers. So
Yeah.
yeah, it would be
This
12
is at the
inches.
base.
20 inches at the most at the base, probably in the teens, and tapering up to 8 to 10 inches
This
at
is
the top.
wood, concrete,
Wood pole.
and at what elevation is this piece right here?
The antenna?
Yeah.
We'll show you on the elevations.
And how big is the pedestal?
Pedestal's a slimline Tesco pedestal, so it's one of the smaller ones. 3.5 feet tall, foot wide, 6 to 8 inches deep.
And this is on the ground.
Yes, sir. This is Southern California Edison-owned pole, and so the meter cannot go on this pole. They allow them on non-company-owned poles, but not on company-owned poles. So it's their rules, which is why it's not on the pole with the rest of the equipment. We could, we look at the. This is the view that best shows what we're looking at from equipment. Looking straight in from the street would be this elevation. So the antenna at the top between 25 and 27 feet. It's a 2-foot tall unit, 15 inches in diameter. Risers, diplexers to combine cables out of this cabinet, or out of these 2 units up in the riser to the antenna. 2 radio units back to back. We could go to the other one. You can see what it looks like from the side, but the trees block it. This is the side view. And then the equipment cabinet on the pole disconnect meter pedestal.
So this is a Verizon pole?
This is a Southern California Edison-owned pole that has been entered into the Joint Pole Authority, so it's a utility pole that all utilities can use.
This, and what does this Verizon do?
Any questions?
What is this?
Yeah. Can we wait till questions?
Yeah,
Oh.
there's someone here.
Yeah,
Has a
we do
speaker
have public comment. So we're going to open a public comment now, and
All done?
is it, I'm sorry, I can't read this, sir, is it Carol?
It's-
Richard? Carol Richard?
It's Rick Harrington,
How do you know that?
because I know you.
I don't feel as bad about this after his presentation as I did before, because from my front yard, this is what I see.
Oh.
And from, I'm sorry, from my front yard, that's what I see from my front yard, this is what I see from my front entry, this is what I see. And as long as this is down here among the branches, it won't be bad, but if it's sticking way up on the poles, then I think I wouldn't like to see that, you know?
So lower is better for you?
Yeah. I don't know where, I was looking at cell, here. So that's a cell tower. You want to do that to that phone pole, but.
No, I'm not going there.
So you're a neighbor, you have now that you know what this is?
Yeah, I don't, can you tell me, by looking at this picture, about where that box will be?
Changed back to the elevations. And this, which is, sir?
Careful on the mic, the
You
microphone.
have the existing,
Courtney, you want to pull that forward?
Probably,
Sir, can you-
right here, you have you can see the communication cable come in on the line, on the pole.
Right there,
this
yeah.
one down here.
And you can see the conductors up here.
Yeah.
So 6 feet below the conductors, 2 feet above
So
telephone
it's-
cables.
It's right about there.
Yeah.
It's going to be about that big, too.
Well, I'm not going to oppose it.
Okay.
Anything
Would
else?
I get free cell service for a year?
I wish I could get that, sir.
Whatever.
It was, yeah, we
Thanks
should
for
all
coming
get
by.
free cell service for the year.
All right, questions from the board, Amy?
No questions.
Kevin?
I mean, this is more at staff. You mentioned earlier you had some issues with pole-mounted versus ground-mounted, and it'd be great to get your.
Sure. What I can give you is some insight is that, we've been looking at these for about 8 years, various types of improvements. And the small cell seems to be the most popular type of installation now, not that most of the towers are in throughout the city, so it's these fill-ins. And when we first began with NextG, Crown Castle now, we had a subcommittee of the ABR reviewing staff's determinations, working with our community development director. And what we did is we requested NextG to either put this equipment, this radio equipment, either into a vault or into a meter pedestal or be placed on the pole. And the ones that were being placed on the pole were the ones that we had no neighborhood opposition for that equipment there, and it was screened adequately. Some of the ones that were more public ended up being placed in equipment pedestals or underground. We have about 20 or so, a little bit over 20 of the 90 sites now in the city that are in underground vaults. And most are centered in the downtown core areas or where we thought there was a lot of pedestrian flow. So given what's happening with another application at council tomorrow, where this board struggled with the last one, whether they should be placed in equipment pedestals, you actually told the other application previously submitted to relocate the equipment south of the pole, and they ended up putting it back because of this concern about not wanting to place landscaping in the parkway, which is a true restriction now that Public Works is saying, no, we don't want you to plant anything in the parkway due to the route and so forth. So that's going to come up in the next application.
Right.
So as you make these decisions, you have to decide where this equipment goes. And again, if there's a lot of opposition, like there was for the appeal tomorrow, where the whole petition said we don't want it, we tend to be more conservative and say try to hide it as best you can. So you don't have a lot of opposition on this one, but be sensitive to how much equipment's being placed in public view. That's all I can tell you at this point.
So this is in the planter?
Yes, sir. The
And-
site.
You just skipped
this-
Courtney.
No, Kevin wasn't done yet.
Or Kevin wasn't
Oh,
done.
sorry.
I guess I don't have any other questions other than that.
Courtney?
Can we look at the site plan, or whatever plan view you have?
A2.
I'm trying to understand, it looks like you've got a new underground trench
Yes.
here, so trying to understand how that may or may, that's good, how that may or may not impact adjacent existing trees. So it looks like you've got it right behind the sidewalk here.
This will be most likely a bore path. We show trenching to show the greatest impact. Confirm the bore path, we'd have to, where the laterals are here, pit for them, expose them. There's no trees here. This is all low ground cover. We can move this out to the street, bore path in the street. That would not be a problem for us. We pit and patch at the locations. It's done quite often. This was what we saw as the best way to avoid that patched look of the street.
How deep is that line?
If it was trenched and buried, 36 feet to top of conduit. If it was bored, it would be bored to go under everything and then come back up at the site. So we'd find out what these depths were of existing utilities serving the house, see what was in the way, and then go underneath it.
Okay. And then you have a pedestal that's located adjacent to the pole.
Yes.
Is that screened in any way? What color is it?
It's proposed to be painted dark green. There are existing shrubs in that area. This is a wood fence, and so what you have is you have the shrubs come down to it. So we went with a dark green to be into those shrubs facing forward, so after we install it.
And that's this, correct? Okay. Did you look at all at placing the equipment on the east side of the pole rather than the south?
If we went on the east side of the pole here, this wall would have to be removed. This is a wall that comes from the pole up, just a low front yard wall.
Are there photos? Can we look at the photo? Oh, let me see.
So we didn't look at putting anything there as minimal impact as possible to, if we went behind the wall, we'd be on the private property. If we went in the public right away, we'd have to remove a section of the wall. So in lieu of disturbing that, we went on the side where the residence has a wood fence in the front
But you don't have any
yard.
equipment that's that low on the pole, it would just be the wiring?
No, the lowest equipment on the pole is, well, risers go up the pole, then 7 feet would be the disconnect.
So then why is the wall affect where you place it on the
Because if
pole?
we put the meter pedestal on this side, the
I
meter
was-
pedestal have to go on the, oh,
I was talking about the pole-mounted equipment. Had you considered mounting that on the east side of the pole?
Yeah, yes. We turned it to the south side because the south side is the side with the trees. So it would be, especially from this residence, it would be behind the tree branches and in the trees rather than exposed on the north side. It would actually work better for us be easier to access on the north side. We put it on the south side to use the trees as the screening.
Okay, thank you.
Howard. Finally got to you.
So what's in the planter now?
Just,
Dirt?
I believe they're just shrubs.
Weeds, dirt, rocks?
No, it's actually, it's the landscaping from the residence. It's clearly irrigated, it's healthy, and it's just growing down to the sidewalk.
But this portion here is sidewalk, and this portion is planter.
Sidewalk, and then the 4-foot planter with their landscaping coming down to the edge of the sidewalk.
Okay, and that's true, their landscaping comes down and around the tree and the pedestal when you put it in there?
The pedestal for clearances for NEC would have to be clear in the front, but over time, that bush would just continue to grow out towards the sidewalk and surround it.
No, I don't have any more questions.
Okay, I don't have any questions, so comments, Amy?
I think where you're proposing to put the equipment makes sense based on the surroundings and the trees and putting that pedestal sort of amongst the shrubs that are there. I would say next time, just bring in some photos that are a little bit clearer because it is pretty dark. But in general, I think it makes sense where you're putting it.
Okay, thank you. Kevin?
Yeah, I agree with Amy. Looks like the best you can do. I do wonder about the Parks and Rec department not wanting to plant anything anymore. That's sort of an odd scenario. Is there some sort of a policy now?
Well, no,
or is it-
there's been a long-standing policy to limit the height of shrubs and plantings in
the
parkways.
parkway, right.
And what they're doing is resisting the introduction of new landscaping to try to accomplish screening. Their belief is if you're going to allow a cabinet, that's a regular improvement in a parkway. It's been done before, so they'd rather have you not condition projects. Try to find it acceptable as a cabinet, or try to locate in such a way that it's not obtrusive.
Okay. Well, I think in this scenario, it's pretty well sort of screened by trees and shrubs all the way around it, so it's not sort of in your face at all. So I think it's fine.
Okay. Courtney?
I'd like to see the underground conduit moved into the road for the reason that we have a curb-adjacent sidewalk here along this entire road, and the only opportunity for any street trees would be behind the sidewalk rather than in front of it. So placing the conduit where you've got it essentially prevents that potential trees from being planted later on down the line. I also might suggest,
I'm sorry, Courtney, so where would it go instead?
as the applicant noted, they could put it in the street, so they would go this
Run
way
along.
and over instead of in this planter space between the right-of-way line and the sidewalk.
Okay.
I might also suggest placing the pole-mounted equipment on the east side of the pole because there's no telling how long this tree will be here. So, you know, right now it's providing nice screening, but it's on private property, so it may not be there forever. And if you consider that tree not being there,
This side here?
yeah, you know, that might be an improved visual. It's a suggestion or a question, I guess, for my fellow board members. to
Can you
ponder.
clarify which side?
East, the east.
So is that like on the back side?
So it would face the street, interior of the property, yeah.
This is, right here, we have a property line.
Yeah.
So that would be overhanging onto two parcels.
Okay, that's why I asked the
Yeah.
question previously, so you didn't clarify that
Oh, I'm
before.
sorry. Yeah, if we swung it this way, it would hang over the, and we have to stay in the public right away with all the equipment.
Okay, that answers that. That's all I have.
Okay. Howard?
I agree with Amy, and I agree with Kevin, and I agree with Courtney about moving the conduit into the street. And I think you've done about all you can to screen it. I think it's kind of, that's the way it's going to go.
So the motion would be final approval with the following comments that to run the conduit in the street rather than in the planter, in the parkway. And otherwise, the design and installation looks acceptable.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So at this point, you're not interested in putting any of the radio equipment into another pedestal? That's not, I'm just trying to make sure that tomorrow, when we present an appeal hearing, that you're being consistent with previous direction, that you don't necessarily like double pedestals. pedestal meters and pedestal equipment to hide the radio equipment. Right?
Well, since I wasn't here for for the project that's under appeal,
Right.
I don't know, I'm not really familiar with why the motion came out the way it did.
Okay.
And so I can't say that the board in general that this board right here would be in favor of the motion that was made. So I don't.
Okay, and the reason I'm asking is, did you understand my comment?
Yeah, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but for that scenario, didn't we ended up, we had everything was on the pole, and then was that our final, or then was that one that we asked to
No.
put it in the parkway and add planting?
You said relocated to the south of the pole and in meter pedestal, and there was 2 pedestals, one for a meter, one for the radio equipment.
Right.
And the applicant actually came back with everything on the pole. And at first, the board wavered, and then looked at both options and finally accepted, but with some comments about, well, it's not the ideal situation, but that's what was allowed to be approved.
Put it on the pole.
Everything's on the pole. Okay, so there's about 5 or 6 pieces of equipment. So what I'm saying to you is tomorrow at City Council, staff is going to recommend that not be the approval standard, and that we relocate some of that equipment into another meter pedestal as originally proposed there. So here you are approving something again on the poles, except for a meter pedestal. So some of it's odd.
Well, because they can't put the meter on the pole.
That's fine. And,
Right.
and so you're saying you don't need some of this equipment to come off this pole on this location. I just want to
Let's
confirm.
raise that question before.
Sorry, I have a question for Jaime. So to clarify, staff's position is that you'd rather see the visual impact be placed
on the ground.
On the ground level rather than pole mounted.
I think the order of preference is to have them in an underground vault, so you can't even see it.
Well,
Right.
yeah.
And then the second
Right.
preference is to have them in pedestals, and the third is to accept them on poles when you feel it's adequately screened. And what I was getting at is, if you feel this option to put it on the pole is adequately screened, I would like to have that included in your motion for minimizing visual impacts, that you concluded that that's the preferred solution here.
Well,
I have a question.
Go ahead,
I have a
Howard.
question. So how does your preference change depending on the environment in which this pole exists? Meaning, North Ontario is a rural, almost a rural
This
street.
is La Cumbra, so.
I'm sorry, La Cumbra.
And we've added some other pedestals in the neighborhood up and down that area.
But does your preference change? For example, this pole is down at the corner of Coda and
Yes, yes.
So in town, where it's dense, and you have a lot of foot traffic, and a lot of visibility and so forth, you want them underground?
Preferably.
On it, preferably. Okay, so then in the rural areas, in the outlying areas where you have maybe pavement on one side of the street, not on the other,
Right.
in a rural area, pedestals are
Right.
okay.
That's correct.
And where it's screened by vegetation and remote and up on a hill somewhere out of sight, aerial.
And when there's no residential opposition, that some people
Right.
don't like to see it from their properties, and therefore, trying to, your job is to minimize visual impacts. And if you're going to approve it here, you have to defend it by saying you've minimized it. And
I hear
I'm
you.
just suggesting that you include that as part of your motion if you're going to approve it
all
as
right.
is.
So before we do that, let me just ask the question, how feasible, or what's the problem with taking some of that equipment off, more of the equipment off and putting it on the ground in a pedestal?
Let's go to the
Big one.
the elevation. You mentioned, I'm sorry, I don't have I took this picture a few hours ago. This is a site that's under construction. It's not a Verizon Wireless project, but it was near where there was a city council meeting, and some residents had mentioned it to me. And you can see the equipment is mounted to the pole in this area. The antenna is up here. This is what's called a DAS node, the distributed antenna system. it is a different scale altogether than a small cell. It has less capacity, less functionality. It provides a smaller service area. It's in the same category of smaller cells, not a tower with a full array, but it has capacity that is much less than what Verizon needs in this area and what is proposed. Would just be one set of radios. This has two sets of radios with dual bands, so you have a higher frequency for if you're outdoor, open windows, and then it has a lower frequency, so if you needed indoor coverage, it would penetrate and provide indoor coverage. The DAS nodes don't do that. They have one or the other, and they're very inflexible with new technologies over time. So there's less equipment.
I'm sure there's a reason you're telling me all this.
There is.
Okay.
When we talk about moving equipment, we're talking about different type of equipment, different quantity of equipment with different needs. Because you have more radios, you have more equipment, it needs to be vented to the outside air. So if we moved this cabinet right here to a pedestal, which we can do, and we have proposed that in the past, it would go on the ground. To move these radios to the ground, we have to be very close to the pole. So it would be the meter pedestal would move over, and we could put these two units in two cabinets that are attached to each other. So it would look, you'd see the joint in them, but it would look like two cabinets about 3 feet, 3.5 feet wide on the ground. This.
Okay, well, we should have asked that question, because I think we would all say that that's preferable.
Well,
as
no,
opposed to.
because I personally think it's fine on the pole.
And then this,
Well, okay, so
this unit could go
I
on the
think
pole.
it's preferable. And we just got direction from Jaime that that's policy.
But
So,
are we
go ahead.
supposed to
Let's-
make the
let's let him finish.
determination
Let's-
based on each circumstance, what we find is acceptable?
Let's let him finish, please.
And I think that's what we just did.
Go ahead.
And this unit would stay on the pole. So these two could be relocated into two cabinets, about 3.5 feet wide combined, and 3.5 to 4 feet tall. To take these. Diplex goes, so you'd have the cantenna, and then you'd have risers up the pole. The meter pedestal would move over. So you'd go from here to 3 units in the parkway versus all on the pole.
And how big would those units be in plan and height?
The plans I delivered to you today?
Yeah, they're upstairs. Would you like?
Roughly, just roughly. It doesn't have to be exact.
3.5 feet wide. It's a different piece of equipment. It wouldn't be in these plans, but
You gotta
Give you a visual. Give me a minute.
Yeah.
You gotta enclose this, this is one, then 2 of those.
well, the meter pedestal would remain a separate unit. So it would just move over to make room, because there's a relationship between this piece of equipment, or these two pieces of equipment, and the cantenna. And if we move that farther away, our coax size gets large very fast. We end up with very large conduit risers on the pole. If we keep it immediately adjacent to the pole at this height, we could still continue with a 4-inch riser. If it moves any more, we're talking about multiple 4-inch risers, probably 3. And
Yeah, we don't want to do that either.
yeah.
But it sounds.
I mentioned that because there was discussion in the past with, what could it go down the street? Things are possible, but what happens is there's other implications that get involved in the project.
Thank you. Okay, so look at that. We've got a photo sim.
This is a different location.
No.
No, this is a different project.
Yeah, but what were you talking about?
Yes, this is it. Can I see the plans, please?
I want to counsel tomorrow.
And I had asked, because of the question I had, there's a question regarding dimensions.
Yeah.
Are these projects still going to the subcommittee?
No.
No. Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, we're under a time shot provisions now, so we're required to have a decision made.
Time shot provisions?
Yeah, there's new, essentially a requirement that the city take action on these in a certain amount of time,
Give you the answers.
and we have to notice it, have a hearing that's noticed, and that's why we're having them before the board now.
Who dictates that?
federal statutes and state regulations is something legal, so.
Can I read it? Is that what you said?
Yeah, can you read the dimensions, the overall dimensions of those things?
I can do it. I think. Okay, so the one that we like is 4'8" high, 4'6" high on a pedestal, and 3'10" high on a pedestal. The plan view, do we have a plan view?
Yes.
Plan view. 21.8 by 24 inches.
On
is
each
one of
one
them.
of those two, yes.
So there's two that are about 24-inch square, and then the smaller one, which is taller.
There's no dimensions on this.
So just roughly, 2 that are 24-inch square, and they're right together.
Mm-hmm.
And they're about 4 feet high.
Yes.
And then the smaller one, which is about 16 inches square, and
Yes.
it's 4'6".
Mhm.
So that's the trade-off.
Sure.
Right.
So how many board members feel like we should go with the direction that city staff is recommending, that where possible in residential areas, we apply this criteria that when possible, to put the meters on the ground as opposed to on the pole? This project would apply in this
Well,
project.
I think in urban residential areas.
Yeah,
I don't know, is this urban, this street here?
I would say so, yeah.
Okay, so that,
What's the,
that was
what's the question? This is a broader.
No, it's just about this project.
This particular.
How many board members are in favor of having pedestal meters and the equipment located on the ground
For this
as
project,
described for this project? Okay. Other board members feel it should go on the pole.
as proposed.
Can I make a comment?
There you go, Jaime.
Can I make
Okay.
a comment?
Sure.
Just in support of that. We're required to make no visual impact findings. So in my opinion, if you place something, the higher up it is on the pole, the more visual impact it has because you can view it from a lot farther away rather than having something down on ground level. So that's my thinking about it.
The other thing I would add to that is that, yes, there's a tree behind it now, but as you mentioned, we don't know how long that's, trees die. So,
So do shrubs.
and shrubs die as well. So, and we've never used landscaping as an adequate means to screen. I mean, we always tried to, and we can, but it's not permanent. So, I mean, the landowner could decide to cut the tree down next week.
Mr. Gadine, there's no wrong answer here. So we might even get some additional direction from council about what they prefer tomorrow. There's obviously some options. So I just wanted you to be aware that there was some inconsistencies.
Yeah.
And to make sure that if I do report to council how you're making those decisions, that I hear it clearly that there is a preference to have it sort of blend in with the pole rather than add infrastructure into the sidewalk.
On this
On this
Well,
site,
it's
on
a
this site.
3-2 vote here.
Okay,
is
so
what
it's
you got in
close.
this project.
I have a
Yeah.
question, Jaime.
Yeah.
Staff's direction on this in terms of what you'd like to see, is that a new development? Because that's the first time I've heard that. So I'm just trying to understand.
No, it was, you mentioned how it was being handled before. We actually had, again, going back 7-8 years, a subcommittee where staff made a recommendation based on comments from board members who went out and looked at it and offered their insight as to whether they thought it was very publicly visible, it was well-traveled, it was in the line of view from people even stopping at intersections and so forth. So there was a lot of criteria, as well as downtown public walking,
But that information was given to the subcommittee, not to our board.
No, the board ratified those decisions. We came to you with specific recommendations, and the board agreed with them.
7 years ago?
Well, over the course of 7 years, that's how long I've been doing it.
Okay.
And I've visited every site. So I'm just relaying to you that there was this pecking order. Even HLC had a pecking order where they wanted them underground for a very public locations in Balls. And that's caused problems with, unfortunately, flooding and so forth of the equipment. But it is what it is.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we have a motion for approval as presented, and we haven't yet voted. Who's making that motion?
Well, I'll make the motion to approve as submitted
Okay.
and make the findings that for this particular location, minimizing the ground-mounted pedestals to one and leaving the other two, we call them not meters, what do you call it?
The RRUs, the radios.
Radios on the pole is acceptable in this instance.
Okay.
Because of the trees location and the fact it's not at an intersection. It's along the,
Okay, and we need a seconder to that motion?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Kevin. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Two
3 to
opposed.
2. So this is not a clear-cut thing for us anyway. I
Yeah.
think it's all context.
Yeah.
It's all about context.
Okay, next one.
All right, next one.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. And by the way, it's great having someone as knowledgeable as you presenting. In the past, we've had projects presented and basically couldn't get our questions answered. So
Feel free to stop if the questions, or ask me if the answer's going someplace.
All right.
I'm a general contractor and as well as a planner, so I tend to answer on this technical side of things.
Yeah.
And it's very dry.
Yeah. The less I know about all that stuff, the better. It's my view. All right.
These are the 3 conditions. And the plan, the Public Works would not go along with 2 and 3. These are our conditions.
Okay.
And Public Works.
Why don't you introduce this? Tell us what's going on here.
So in this project, this came to ABR consent this afternoon. And we were given this copy of the memorandum April 12th, 2016. Architectural Board meeting on March 28th. The above-mentioned project received design approval with the following conditions. 1, study rotating the proposed equipment 90 degrees to lessen the visual impact. 2, provide drought-tolerant, low-water use landscaping adjacent to the pedestal box. 3, the project needs to add one 24-inch tree on either side of the pole to screen the proposed equipment in order for the no adverse visual impact findings to be made, resulting from the wireless antennae and equipment installation in consideration of compatibility with nearby buildings, appropriate screening, site location, antenna color and size. Public Works Department does not support condition number 2 regarding the plantings in the Parkway Strip. Location has no plants and is not maintained, therefore overrun by weeds. Plantings at this location would not be maintained and would soon be overgrown. Santa Barbara Municipal Code 15.20.040 states that, quote, it is unlawful to install or plant in a parkway strip any other plant whose ultimate growing height is over 8 inches without a written permit from the director. Additionally, the Public Works Department does not support condition 3, which calls for the planting of a street tree. There are no street trees along this narrow section of less than 7 feet of sidewalk in the 400 block of Kenyatta Street. Further, the city arborist has requested that no new street trees be installed at this time due to drop conditions. Public Works recommends that these conditions be adjusted to meet current policy and supportable actions. Please contact me at extension 5365 with any comments or questions.
Call them up.
So, and therefore, we looked at this, and because these were conditions that were made by the full board, I did not feel comfortable in okaying this with the planning commission.
Without 2 and 3.
Without coming back to the full board. It's
Okay.
kind of a courtesy.
So it was rotated 90 degrees as we requested. Do board members need to review this project? No?
Case file there.
Is this it right here? Or is this, oh, this is the other one.
Does,
Is this the one?
So that,
This,
that motion was made with 4 of us here. I was absent
yeah, I
from
was
that,
absent
so
as well.
I'm unsure about the landscape comments.
So now, this street is, this location is in a different context. This is Blanchard and Cañada. Sidewalks, 1, turning the corner, no sidewalk, no sidewalk.
no sidewalk here, proposed as condition to add sidewalk, to connect the sidewalks here. This is this portion of the lot is kind of like, it appears to be a vacant lot. It's really the backyard of this residence. And there's no sidewalk here. This is just the area, that's all.
This is a driveway entrance right here,
To this property.
and this is a driveway entrance. So it's
Correct.
sidewalk from,
There's no sidewalk here right now. What's shown here is the 6-foot wide proposed sidewalk that has been conditioned by Public Works.
So, again, the proposal is to put everything on the pole.
The current proposal is yes. This one started out as a cabinet on the ground around the corner. It was not possible to place everything on the pole, the radios, into the cabinet due to distance away. So when it first came before, there was a condition to landscape, and that started the whole landscape discussion of how to landscape in the parkway. We responded with the proposed design that's shown with everything on the pole except the meter, which can't go on the pole. And that was the design that was approved with conditions to landscape and then provide a tree, which is the subject of the Public Works letter.
So, so there is the option also on this project to put things in meters on the ground-mounted pedestals.
what's the usability of this?
The originally proposed design, is that in the file?
See, this,
I have an 11 by 17 if necessary, sir.
Yes,
Yes.
please.
Did the comments from the first review, did we ask for it to go underground and then it came back
Nope, this is
on the pole?
this is the second
We did.
submittal.
Okay.
This initially,
It's a different one?
this initially came to the board, I think, before you were here. Here,
Really?
you can look at it. The dates are messed up. It's out of order.
One cabinet on the ground around the corner. Then we'll go to the elevations and we'll show you what cannot be removed. These 2 units that are shown on the pole, due to the distance the cabinet would be from the pole, could not be placed in the second cabinet as we looked at on the project. These could be reconfigured. We looked in other projects where they're mounted back to back at the same height, and then so it's deeper off the pole rather than square looking on the pole. Either way works. We would install them at your preference, but they have to, this disconnect right here, that's requirement on the pole, these 2 units, and then this diplexer on it, because this is a connection from these 2 up to the Cantana. So we move it's probably best to look at them side by side.
this is our current project, or this is this project?
This is the current project. You can see this is the cabinet that comes off the pole and goes to the ground in that instance. And this is the one where we changed it to make room for this cabinet on the pole. Instead of stacking these this way, they've been
So that ends up
side
going
by
up
side.
higher as well.
This piece is higher than this piece, looks like.
Yes,
Yes.
we have overhead
Back to back, is this your back to back?
There it is. So this is at 13.6, 12.5, and these could shift. These could move, how this is shown right here. This could go back to the back-to-back at this level, at the higher level or the lower level. The requirement is 7 feet to the bottom or of the lowest piece. This one's at 8.
Okay, but my question was, this, because this is going on the pole in this design, then this ends up shifting up higher.
Just in going back-to-back just a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, a foot or so.
But if this was off the pole, we could move this back down.
Yeah. Okay. Well, again, I think having the ground-mounted pedestal is preferable to putting it up on the pole.
Yeah, and I think
In the current
that's what,
proposed here? This
In
one?
the original proposed, this design.
So in other words, we get it off, out of the planter, up on the pole?
No,
no,
opposite.
the opposite.
Opposite.
Because I think from the minutes, the first time it was in the pedestal, but we conditioned it with planting. And then when it came back, you'd put it all on the pole so that we would not have to do the planting. But then it ended up getting conditioned with planting again for the adding trees and such. So, because I think originally we were okay with the pedestal,
Well,
we just wanted to see
It
planting
is-
around
It
it.
is very clear
But
that
now it would just be the pedestal.
there's going to be no support for landscaping, maintenance, or,
Sure.
anything
Right.
in the future.
Right.
So,
And that's coming from Public Works, not Parks, correct?
That's
Or
correct.
for both?
Public Works, really. And in the city arborist reports, no trees also.
Sure.
It just does not want to see trees planted at this time.
Okay, so is it possible for us to make a motion to approve the previous design?
You can condition it that it return back to the previous design.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Would anyone like to make that
Okay.
motion? Okay, would someone else like to make a different motion?
so, excuse me, I'm confused.
Sure.
So the way it's proposed now, this is the project, it's on the pole.
Yes, sir.
And whether this is on the pole or in the ground, no landscaping.
Yeah.
Correct.
So does this commission feel okay with putting stuff back on the ground without landscaping?
That's my
But
position.
that's the question.
I have a question for staff. How do you define visual impact?
Well, the problem with the current ordinance is those minimizing visual impacts were really determining whether or not we should refer the project for a conditional use permit. In other words, if you find it so incompatible that you feel that it was too obvious and apparent as far as, and we were talking about all types of cell facilities, right? So most of the ones that were referred, or this board or the commission had a problem with, were pole structures, to be honest with you. Most of the solutions on buildings were resolved. You required them to be camouflaged, and they ended up being camouflaged. So now we're dealing with this new phenomena with these small existing co-located sites, placing more equipment on utility poles. And so how do you deal with that? So I hear your struggles, and so it is trade-offs. What would you prefer in specific locations?
I always struggle with making a finding of no adverse
Well,
visual impacts
it's
when
no-
it is
it's-
impacting.
Yeah, it's not no
review.
visual impacts. It's have you minimize them with color, materials.
Reword that
Lesser. It's a
You-
lesser.
community code.
Yeah. Well, it's in the
And
process of
requirement.
being updated. So there is hope out there.
We're making a no adverse compatibility issues finding.
No, the ordinance still says, have you done your job by minimizing visual impacts? And the alternatives would be, do you visually minimize impacts by taking the radio equipment off the pole?
I understand that part of it. I don't understand the specifics of the semantics related to what we're required to make in our findings.
Well,
So-
That you minimize the installation impacts to the best possible degree.
Yeah, there you go. I think it's getting quite late now, and what I'd like to do is make a motion on this particular project and close the meeting. So who would like to make a motion?
Sorry, one final point under discussion. From my point of view, so he described if we mount everything as much as we can on the ground, we end up with about a 4-foot by 4-foot box in the parkway.
No.
Not in this one.
Not on this one.
The
Okay.
right of way.
It's here, it's right here, and we've got a,
We have the plans. We could get the dimensions on this.
yeah, so we've got a 2'4" square box, looks like, more or less square.
That was it. Just happened to black out in this print.
In this one, the RRU units cannot be relocated off, so it's just the radio box.
So
Right.
the plan,
Have stuff on
it's not exactly rectangular in plan, but it's 26, is that what I'm reading, or 28? 26.4 inches by 2'4".
26 by 28.
Yeah, 26 by
By how
28.
tall?
By how tall?
39.
39 inches.
39 inches tall, that's one. And then the other one is that pedestal that we've been looking at, the meter pedestal, which is 2 foot, no, what is that? Is that wrong? Here it is. It's 12 inches by 7.5 inches and 50 inches tall.
Right, so we get all this stuff on the ground, and we still have stuff on the pole.
We still have,
And
but
we're
look at what it is.
We're adding things
It
from the
looks
ground.
like this
Sure.
instead of,
So should we take a vote?
and it's higher.
So do you agree that we have minimized the visual
That's-
impact this way?
That's the
Which
issue.
way?
I think we have by going with this
I want to
plan.
ask Courtney.
Well, that's what we're about to vote on. Let's just vote on
I want to
it.
ask Courtney directly. I don't want you to answer for her, Courtney. She's the one that is
Well, we're
the
just about to
problem.
vote on it.
Yeah, let's just take
I
a
don't have a
vote.
problem. I have an issue with the larger,
Yeah.
findings that we're required to make for all of these projects. It's not specific to this project. So,
Right.
Okay.
And I appreciate that, and I feel the same way, and I'm glad you brought it up. I mean, I've been through this many times. We're required to make the findings no visual impact, but you mount something on a pole in the air, and it's going to have a visual impact. So there you go. How do you deal with that? Anyway, we need a motion, please. Someone like to make a motion?
I will make a motion to approve this submittal here as proposed, with the finding that we have, that the proposal minimizes the visual impact as much as possible in this location.
That's the large plan that's in
So
front
you're
of us
talking about
today.
everything that's on the pole.
The large plan that's in front of us today.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Who would like to second that motion?
I will,
Now, wait a second. He showed me something else here. What's this?
yeah, no, that's the other,
What's this?
that's the,
this is
that's
the
the
one that-
other,
This is the original
This is
proposal.
the original
This is
proposal.
not, that's the original
It's the original
of
proposal.
this.
Yeah,
Yes.
so which one are you?
Well,
this is the one that's in front of us
I
today.
think-
That's the original.
I think this does not minimize the visual impact.
Thank you.
I think this
disagree.
minimizes. You
So-
disagree?
So let's vote on it. Let's get a motion and vote on it. So that's your motion, is to approve this plan, the original plan, which has 2 pedestals on the street.
On a side street?
Okay. And less equipment on the pole.
Yes.
Okay, so that's the motion. Who would like to second that? Can I second it?
Yes.
Anything you
Okay,
want.
so I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed? 2
opposed.
Go
3-2.
3-2.
There you go.
We're never going to get.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks a
The
lot.
project functions, which is our concern.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we will, and there's a 10-day appeal period on that approval.
Thank you
And,
for your patience.
Before we close the meeting, we'll have an architectural quote from Frank Lloyd Wright, again, who said that, I'm paraphrasing, but he said, "Doctors are better off because they can bury their mistakes, whereas architects can only advise their clients to plant vines."
Plant what?
Vines.
Did anyone receive my little,
That
did you receive
concludes
my
our
little
meeting for this
deal
evening.
about the